And it's 5:59 if you wanted to start in a minute.
So I'll call the March 5th, 2025 Charter Revision Commission meeting to order. Everybody can stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
You can do it.
United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we start all of our meetings with public audience. And we've got two people in the public this evening. Would either of you would like to speak? Diana, if you could just, you can just stand where you are, just state your name and your address. And we're gonna limit comments to 3 minutes.
At the initial public hearing, I did speak, and I did enter the rest of my comments in writing, but I'm not sure whether any of those were recorded or whatever. But I wanted to highlight not only some of the things, but add a few things to what I had to say that night. How important I think our structure of our government is, but realizing how dependent it is on the people who are in office and our town management to make it work. And what has become obvious, particularly through this budget time, is how important it is to have, I'm gonna call it a safeguard, and it's a finance committee. If we don't keep a strong finance board, they have proven they're trustworthy, they have proven they're non-political. I don't always agree with them, but they know that it is our money, it is the public money. And even though they don't necessarily support something, they take it to the public for a vote. Then if the public says, yes, spend that money, they figure out how to make it work for the town. So we don't have these crazy swings. And some of what I see in the budget process is beginning to reinforce that we need a very strong board of finance to kind of oversee and be our safeguard for when we either don't have a good balance between our town management and our elected officials. So I urge you, make sure that stays in the charter with some safeguards, that it doesn't come under general management. Also, another thing I would urge you to reinforce in our charter is it can't be 3 minutes.
It is 30 minutes, yeah.
Well, it's just, the public needs to be heard. And whether it's public audience at Board of Selectmen or letters get attached to the minutes, without hearing from the public, this town is gonna go off the rails. And I thank each one of you for what you do. I've been out of state, I watch the TV. I keep seeing you every night on TV.
We're so sorry.
Monday night, Wednesday night, Friday night, Tuesday afternoon.
Good.
So,
Well, thank you for your comments. We've received written comments that was Franklin emailed out. They will be put into public record And I think I know what Diana brought up, that our email address isn't working. I think I know what the problem is. You had the period at the end, and the period was intended to be the end of a sentence and not part of the email address.
Okay,
So it's just Simsbury /ct.gov, no period at the end. So I think that's why I got kicked back.
okay, the one that was sent out.
Yeah, well, because it's part of a sentence, and there's a period at the end of the sentence, but the period's not part of
Okay.
the
But it
email
captured
address.
Yeah.
But the email do you know what I mean? So
The link captured
the link
it.
captured it, but it's not part of the email address, so.
Okay, and thank you, Franklin, for,
But we do have a copy of it and will be made part of public record. Is there anybody else in public audience that would like to speak? Susan? Just state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Susan Messino, 41 Madison Lane. I'm here tonight with a couple of comments. Some of you know I'm on open space. We just had an open space meeting. We're gonna be providing some very minor, probably corrections related to open space. But I have a couple of other points tonight. So I just wanna remind you that you don't actually have to do anything. And I think maybe your first priority is to correct errors and prevent accidents. And I mean, there's a lot of accidents that can't be recovered, and having accurate minutes. Thank you for attaching the letters to your agenda. That's very much appreciated, so we know what other people are thinking. I noticed the minutes from your February 4th meeting. I'm not sure they really captured what I thought was the discussion in terms of a lot of issues like chief administrative officer, which is what I thought our town manager was. That's not really captured in the minutes. And I think when you look back, this could be an issue when you're trying to remember what people talked about during these meetings. So I'd encourage you to review that. I also want to say, echo what Diane said about how important it is to keep people informed and give them opportunities to speak. And I noticed on your agenda, first of all, you're doing great work, but I noticed on your agenda tonight, and I'm gonna talk quickly, it says you can only address things that are on the agenda. And I think that may dissuade someone who may wanna talk about the charter revision, but may not know what anything is on the agenda for tonight. So I respectfully would ask to make a couple of other comments. One is about I'm an unaffiliated voter. And you had a discussion a few times ago about unaffiliated voters and how would that get selected. And when I was selected to be the unaffiliated person on open space, it was a bipartisan interview by a Democrat and a Republican on the Board of Selectmen. And I would really strongly advise that that is a fair way to have unaffiliated people welcomed onto committees rather than have some person appoint them. So I'd really strongly recommend that. And I also really like the idea of a staggered Board of Selectmen. You could easily do it by having the highest vote getters get the 4-year term and the other vote getters get the 2nd-year term. It could be staggered immediately, and that would be, I really appreciated Lisa Hebner, Chair of Finance's comments. I actually bought the book that she recommended. It weighs a lot. I actually bought 2 copies, which is why it weighed so much, so I'm willing to loan one out. But it's really important, fascinating stuff. I'm not trained in public policy, I'm a biomedical researcher. So I'm always coming from a biomedical first do no harm perspective. So, having a slate, I think works for people of a given party, but having staggered terms works for the town, which is the people. It makes it less partisan and lets people focus on issues that are really important to the town rather than to a particular party. So thank you is that my 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
If you want to submit written comments, because you've got additional things, you're
Yeah.
welcome to send them in, and then they will be added to our next agenda,
Okay, thank you very much.
because we want to make sure we hear everybody.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Stephen, Jackie?
No.
No, the second time. Okay, I'm just checking.
Just a point of clarification, Madam Chair, whenever I receive or the Charter Revision Commission receives public comment, I've made a tab on the Charter Revision Commission page, and I'm putting all resident comments, town officials, staff, all comments the Charter Revision that's addressed to the Charter Revision Commission is on that tab, so you'll see your comments, Diane.
Yes, thank you, because we had discussed that at the last meeting to make sure everything is available for everybody to see. Okay, so great, well, thank you all for those comments. So our next item on the agenda is a member of our Board of Selectmen, Diane Geisley. Thanks for coming this evening. And we had 3 selectmen, Stephen being one of them, here last time. So I believe Kevin Beal is going to be attending the next meeting. So we just want to hear from each of you about how things are going and the roles between Board of Selectmen and Town Manager and any other issues that you've got regarding the charter.
Great.
Okay, so floor is yours.
Where's mine? Do you want to ask questions?
You get 3 minutes. No, I'm kidding.
Bye. Well, I mean, if we're gonna start with like the form of government, town manager form of government, I do believe that it is a form of government that works for our town. I think it was a big change when we adopted it, and I think regardless of who was in that position, I'm not sure since it was such a large change, it was, people in even in commerce, you have buyer's remorse, so you question and then, wait, maybe I should have gone with this model instead. And now in our second iteration of town manager, there's still some growing pains and there's still some kinks to work out, I think. But I do believe it is what is best for the town in that you have somebody administering and overseeing departments and basically the running of the town, where you have elected officials creating policy and working on budget and things that are given to staff and to the town manager to administer and to manage. I think that there could be some clarification in the roles because I coming from a longstanding first selectman and board of selectmen, I think that in some ways that's still being kind of worked out on who is really responsible for what part. And I think having some clarification on what is truly the town manager's role, what are their given responsibilities, what are they basically given to manage and given to oversee, and how they partner with the Board of Selectmen and the first selectman to achieve these goals, I think is important, and I can try to come up with some examples if you would like. I think that communication is key, and I think transparency is key, both from a town manager and a Board of Selectmen standpoint, not only amongst each other, but with the public as well, because we are here to basically, we're here to help the town on behalf of every person in this town, regardless of whether they voted for me or not. I'm here to represent the town, and all the community's best interests, and we want our town manager then to make sure that our departments are running according to how the community wants us to manage things, if that makes sense. So I think there is some clarification that should be done amongst those roles, and because we should be partners in this. We should be having good working relationships between departments, town manager. We want respect. We want the departments to respect the town manager, and then the town manager and office respect the Board of Selectmen, but the Board of Selectmen also respect the town manager. I think that the town manager role in negotiating with like unions or negotiating contracts is something that should stay within their purview, but get adopted by the Board of Selectmen appropriately. People who are elected as the town manager should come with the skill set of administering and managing town and department heads. Board of Selectmen may or may not come with that experience. Some may have business experience, some may have managerial experience, some may have leadership experience. But we don't necessarily have the expertise in all of those making sure departments are run efficiently, making sure departments are running well, making sure that staff is managed but also taken care of well. Some of us could have that experience, but we don't have that from a town perspective. We are elected as lay people, honestly, who are representing the town in their best interests. So then we bring that information to the town manager and we bring that information to the departments to make sure that what we're being elected to is being passed through to the departments. And that's what I wanna make sure happens. That we're staying in the roles that we are elected to, and the town manager, form of government, town manager is doing the role that he or she is hired to do. And that, I think that's also a big difference, is we are elected and they are hired. So I think understanding where the hierarchy within that lies should be defined very clearly. And I think within the charter currently, it gets a little fuzzy.
Where is the ambiguity, where do you find the ambiguity to be?
Well, I think the ambiguity sometimes lies in who is empowered to want to set policy or create policy or drive ideas. And there are things that I think the Board of Selectmen can drive. There are things that I think the town manager can drive. I think that sometimes working together, we can drive certain things. But it's almost who should be the driver behind some things where, and this is something that, I mean, people watch our Board of Selectmen meetings. So we talk about economic development a lot. And we, as our goal, had said the economic development is one of our top goals as Board of Selectmen. Then where does that fall? And we have an Economic Development Commission. Whether we feel that that's running effectively, that may be another topic we get to and things, but then as part of the Board of Selectmen goals, does that go to the town manager? And then when that town manager tries to drive economic development ideas, is it a policy idea or is it another drive idea? What lane does that stay in? And so I think that's, some of those things get fuzzy. Who is empowered to drive that? Or
Yeah, well, just, I mean, it's clear, I think, that you believe that policy decisions should be made by the Board of Selectmen, but
Yes.
the definition of what constitutes a policy decision is subject to interpretation.
Correct.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot
Yeah.
for a minute and just could you give examples, say, of tasks or functions that you think should rest with the town manager and not with the Board of Selectmen, and examples of on the other side of things that the town manager really shouldn't be doing because they're the job of the Board of Selectmen.
so clearly,
We have
yeah,
another select member of your board
Yes.
here, and he's free to answer this question as well.
yes. I think, pay attention, Steve. I think very clearly things like contract negotiation, union negotiations, departmental, obviously hiring, firing, those decisions, although we have a personnel subcommittee, I think those rest within the purview of a town manager and then HR within that for certain things. But I think those should be very clearly, they may have to be ratified and adopted ultimately by the Board of Selectmen approval, but the negotiation part and where the contract formation, I feel should squarely lie within the town manager. I think that it does lie within the town manager to have proposals that they may want to bring to the Board of Selectmen for discussion and policy, if it's a policy change, without necessarily this is where the nuance comes in, because it's you can come with an idea without coming at it from we are going to do this and I want your support behind it. I think there's a difference. Like, you have, I have an idea for an economic development. This is your top priority. We should maybe create, okay, so, you may have received a letter today, and I'll talk about it.
Yeah.
So, that could be a policy, but if the letter was like, consider a recommendation, consider that as part of your recommendations. If it's going to come, it's ultimately gonna come to the Board of Selectmen to either adopt or not adopt, and if there needs to be a policy created around it, then a policy is created around it. But that policy creation wouldn't lie within a board, within the town manager.
So,
Okay.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, just kinda wanna walk through that example a little bit, cause
Yeah.
Cause it seems to me, as soon as you guys say economic development is a clear priority or not the number one priority, and especially if you feel you need to take a vote on that to establish that, there's your policy, right? So then you're sending that to the town manager and saying, go
Implement
forth
it.
and implement, right? I mean, it sounds like maybe it's not that simple, I guess, just by the crux of what you're saying.
So we have every beginning of the selectmen terms, we have a workshop for our goal setting. That's where we set our goals. It doesn't set policy
Correct.
per se. The part of the town manager's job is to fulfill the goals of the Board of Selectmen, and that's where it starts to get a little gray and hazy, that everyone's getting a little confused on what policies are. For instance, prior to our existing board, which has not operated in this manner before I even share this, what used to happen under the first selectman board form of government prior to town selectmen, and the transfer, the idea was that the town manager would get, for contract negotiations, a minimum and a maximum before they went into the contract negotiation. Then the town manager would go into such negotiations knowing this is the cap and I want to be as near as the bottom because this is what my policy setting board said. Did that. At this point, we do have some cleanup because we have gotten our contracts finished. So we had the choice of either blowing them up with no input and accepting what came down the pike or not. That's an internal problem. Last time when I spoke, and we had a discussion, honestly, these are more a discussion than a speaking. Paul was the one that was kind enough to remind me that we set our own policies. That's not in the charter, the policies of how we operate. And I think a lot of this also falls into the policies of how we operate that I don't know how you would write them into the
That's kind of where I
charter.
was going. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey,
I'm sorry,
how are you?
No, you go ahead, yeah.
Alright, so Diane, just a little clarification on some of that,
Sure.
okay? Alright, so regarding contracts or regarding hiring people, okay? What I think would be helpful, looking at charter, is clarification where the first select person, okay, is part of that discussion with the town manager. In that way, it's not a total surprise when those things come up. Because they are the leader of the Board of Selectmen, right? Not that all 6 Board of Selectmen would be in a meeting to discuss that, to discuss a union contract, all right? And what I hear you saying, and I don't wanna put words in your mouth,
Sure.
is there needs to be clarification around that. And in many of the towns that I've studied, the first select person is the chief executive officer, not the chief elected officer. The town manager is the chief administrative officer, whether you call it the town manager or change it, but
Right.
it just sort of clarifies that, okay, the Board of Selectmen sets the policy and the strategies, all right? But that they still have to, the town manager still has to recognize that they have to work with the first select person to make sure that that's done, so that you don't get on, a night before your board meeting, all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's the contract, blow it up or
Right.
accept it.
And I would agree with that. Let me clarify also that understanding that our first selectman, Wendy Mexdudis, she serves on the personnel subcommittee. So you would think that as I believe chair of personnel subcommittee, is she not, or am I?
Yeah, Wendy is, the first selectman is automatically
the chair
of personnel.
of personnel subcommittee, that they would be involved in that process before, because the personnel subcommittee would be involved in those hiring and contract processes well before it ever came to the Board of Selectmen or we knew about that, and that's okay. But I would assume, and I shouldn't assume anything because we know what that does, that, and this is where things may have been falling short though, that personnel subcommittee and our first selectman as chair of personnel sub would be in the know on all of that. So some of my comments may be coming from not a first selectman town manager perspective, but from as a board member town manager, where as first selectman should be chief executive officer, may have more clarification and knowledge, institutional knowledge or insider knowledge of some of these workings that I don't have yet because I'm on the board, if that makes sense.
Right, so what that does, I'm getting back to your original
Yeah.
comment that, we have a town manager form of government. We're gonna stick with that. That's what I'm hearing you saying, and it needs tweaks. Basically to clarify some of the roles within that. And I'm strictly focusing on the Board of Selectmen with respect to that in recognition of why you're here. Okay, all right, good, thank you.
So I have a question, and I always tend to come from this from a business perspective because that's just what my background is. So you as the Board of Selectmen you have like a mission or a vision for the town because the town has elected you based on whatever you ran on and what you've listened to them and this is what's important. So let's say it's economic development, open space protection, whatever it is. In my mind, that vision should be something that guides the chief administrative officer, aka the town manager, and all departments in the town saying, is this thing that I'm going to do consistent with the vision of the Board of Selectmen who are elected by the town people, right? So in the charter, it says that the town manager is responsible for the administration of the policies, but that's not a policy, that's
Correct.
more of an overarching theme.
Or goals, right?
Of goals, right? So should there be some sort of language that the goals established by the Board of Selectmen that, and I don't know how to word this, but that the town manager as the chief administrative officer has those goals in mind when administering these policies always, because that should be our guiding principles for everything that we do, whether it's when someone picks up the phone and says Town of Simsbury, or they have an interaction at the tax office, or Parks and Rec has a new program, it should all be consistent with the vision of the Board of Selectmen based on your goal setting, because you set your goals based on what your constituents wanted, right? Am I hearing this like in theory?
Part of what hampers the thing,
Right.
if it's okay,
Go ahead.
is that we turn over the Board of
Board of
Selectmen
Selectmen so
every
frequently.
24 months. So tell him this guy who's here permanently, so, for all intents and purposes.
He may be here, we're gone.
He's still working off of,
Right.
working off previous boards' goals. So he still acknowledges our goals, but he's working off of previous. I still think the onus is on the Board of Selectmen to enact their policies and goals and pass them through in the form of policy setting and having the town manager more reactive to what the board guides him to do than having again, this is just me, having the board give them the football and then walk off the field and be like, "Hey, you got that?" So I think that's also the onus is on the Board of Selectmen to sort of take that ball. But go ahead, you're the.
So if you,
From a charter standpoint, like the example you gave was very elegant about the procedure, minimum and maximum, negotiating your contract. I don't think the charter is the place for that. I think maybe
Right.
the charter should say that the Board of Selectmen will set that procedure, and then you can change that, because maybe you don't wanna set the minimum maximum this time.
Exactly, because the charter is a lock and load for a minimum
Mhm.
Right.
of 7 years.
Yeah.
And possibly more. And part of our discussion on one of the other nights was, are we writing the charter or are we writing the job description? Because they're
Right.
two different
They are.
things.
Correct.
So the charter, to me at least, is a far overreaching, almost an umbrella, that's covering everything. And not the nitty gritty of the job description. And I think this sort of stuff, I had written you guys a letter even that implied, some stuff shouldn't be in the charter because it allows us to bob and weave as time changes and we don't wanna wait for almost a decade to acknowledge and react. And I think some of this stuff, as jobs evolve, who knew that encyclopedias wouldn't be worth any money 20 years ago? But, you have to allow within the charter for it to evolve. So I wouldn't get too caught up in the
In that.
definitive aspect.
And I agree with Steve in that with your question, I was gonna have pretty much almost the same answer of knowing that there's the consistency of the town manager, which is a benefit to the town and to the department heads and to the management and the running of the town, when we, as it's currently running and that we get elected every 2 years, we may or may not, a year from now, who knows if I will sit here or not, and so you don't wanna have them run on necessarily always just these policies because, even as Board of Selectmen, we are, especially last year, our budget was based and we were managing the budgets based on previous boards' budgets.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. So you wouldn't wanna lock him into something that, that's another issue that I'm happy to discuss, is, the terms of our board, because, even if we wanna set policy, and then 2 years later, somebody could, we haven't even implemented the policy and now there's new people potentially that have to implement it or run with it or disagree with it. We have policies that we are trying to work with, which were enacted when we first came on board, and when 4 of us were brand new to this, it was a steep learning curve. And so I think anything that can have continuum of services to the town and policies to the town and administering the town is helpful to everybody.
If we go back to this question of
Yes.
how do we define what constitutes policy,
Yeah,
what's the
that's my
role of
question.
the town manager? I mean, as a practical matter, where the slippage might occur, where where a town manager might overstep or violate the policies. We talked about one in a way, which is not necessarily union contracts per se, but contracts or committing the town to something without the supervision of the board. So we wouldn't necessarily write into the charter that the town manager has to get a minimum or maximum range
Right.
for a contract. For example, we're buying a piece of real estate right
Correct.
now. Although, I've negotiated contracts on behalf of clients and I always got a range before I
Right.
made it. But we could say that the town manager would be supervised and follow guidance or any guidance that the Board of Selectmen provides before making any commitment or before committing the town to any course of action. There's spending money, right? There's another place where we know, for example, money gets unspent, money gets left around. It needs to be transferred from department to department. We don't know how much supervision is required. So maybe you could speak, the two of you could speak to that. It's something my board
Yeah.
is really interested in. Well, I'll.
I mean, and I will say that I do feel that a Board of Finance is extremely important for us to have. Again, we as a Board of Selectmen are looking at so many different things for the governing of the town and the policy of the town. When it comes to our budget, having the Board of Finance guidance is extremely helpful to us and extremely important to us. You know, these are things that you look at on a constant basis. We are looking at it in chunks as it comes to us. You know, whether it's a property or you know, anything else, or a contract that does then come to us. But having a Board of Finance continually looking at and our forecasting and making sure within, I think that is extremely important to the Board of Selectmen. And as you said, mentioning transferring of funds amongst departments, or if we have to do an appropriation for something because there was a shortfall and now they need an appropriation, or we have a surplus, and then, you know, how are we, of course, looking for guidance from the Board of Finance for some of these, but some of them have, you know, come to us and we approve these appropriations or transfer of funds amongst departments. Whether that, are you clarifying, like, should that just be under the town manager's purview to do that on his own without the Board of Selectmen, or?
Well, what I'm thinking really in terms of is that if I were, and I don't mean to impugn our current town manager, because I really don't believe this is the case, but if I were a town manager who wanted to gain power for myself,
Right.
the way to do that is to be less than forthcoming about where the money is sitting and where I'm spending it. If I want to spend it on something that the Board of Selectmen has already decided is not an area they favor, there are lots of ways I can do that by not allowing supervision into where the money's flowing. So I don't know how much, as a practical matter, how much oversight it's reasonable to give to the Board of Selectmen in these day-to-day financial matters, but that's something I think we all need to think about. I guess the other question, the other area.
And I agree in the sense of transparency, again, there's that we want to make sure that even the town knows where this money is being spent.
And then I guess the other area where it makes sense to think about where the line is being drawn would be personnel policies. Something I don't know very much about, and I don't know much about how the Board of Selectmen deals with it. So if you guys could enlighten us a little.
Well, I'm not on personnel subcommittee. You are. I mean, I know what comes to the board eventually, but I would not want to speak on behalf of the personnel subcommittee, since that is not a subcommittee that I have been a part of. I mean, I know what comes to us and certain things that if you wanna.
Sure, well, first of all, we have a secret handshake. Personnel, our town, let me go back one step further. Right now, we always evolve, which is one of the things our charter as it stands allows. And one of the things we have done is we have created an HR department. It's sort of ironic, we never had an HR department. It hasn't even been a year that we have we always had a HR specialist, or whatever the fancy term is, within the town manager's office. But now we have an HR department. And with the evolution of it, the personnel subcommittee has sort of been standing back to let it form, because it can't form when you're like hovering. That's part of the reason with like the contract negotiations, we took a step back. But also to clarify the building, you mentioned the building, the Board of Selectmen had executive session and we set maximum minimum. So that stuff is still occurring. Like I said, we are allowed to do that. And then as you also know, to address your transfer of funds, the first thing we do is the budget.
Yes.
So we already have the caps in place for each department of what we want to spend on each department. That being said, the town manager does have some ability to move the funds around as long as it does not go to another department. Then when it goes to another department, or correct me if I'm wrong, it's gotta go before two boards to transfer those lines already within our charter, does it not?
That's the policy we've
Yes.
Which is
articulated,
great, so I mean, I would just underscore that as a great policy. Personnel also does meet with HR and the town manager at once, so it's sort of a three-leg stool, that's Lisa's term, even though she's not here. And it gives it a lot of fortification, having that. So personnel subcommittee is a necessity. I don't know if it needs to be written into the charter, since the subcommittee, it's sort of gray on if you include it. But right now, it is functional, and I would just say it's a necessity.
Well, and the four main subcommittees of the subcommittees of the Board of Selectmen are Personnel, Board of Ed, Public Safety, and Finance.
Just by way of comparison, I don't know if this helps or hurts, I fundamentally agree with you, I don't think you wanna write this into the charter, but our personnel subcommittee on the Board of Education, it's a 4-member boards, and we are in not all of the contracts with the unions, but we're in certainly with the teachers, the administration, the bigger ones. So that helps, gives us an idea of what's happening, so there's no surprises, so I don't know, just kind of take that for what it's, maybe that
Yeah,
helps
no,
if you.
we like that, we haven't been allowed to be upfront.
Allowed by whom?
Well, I don't know as we've been barred, but we have not been invited.
Invited.
Let me use that terminology. We have not been invited into the contract negotiation. It's been our HR director, our director of HR, and the town manager in there. And then at the end, as it is necessitated for, financial responsibility, they bring in our legal counsel as needed.
If we,
So for clarification, what you just described, the first select person is not part of that?
Yeah, it's something we're gonna yes. At this point, it has not been that way.
Right, cause she was not part of like the police negotiation or
None of
the
them.
contracts
You
that we
can
just.
just cover them all.
So prior to us having the town manager form of government, the first selectman and the personnel
Most certainly.
subcommittee would most certainly be in these negotiations, so now is this a new phenomenon, or
It
is
is
it?
a byproduct of our bringing the town manager form of government. Because you gotta let the guy do his job, but I believe things such as this that have long-term ramifications, I think it should be our
And-
legislative body.
And in full disclosure, I don't know if it was a byproduct from the previous town manager that carried over, or did it start with this town manager? Since we also started at the same time as the new town manager, we can't say necessarily if this was a practice before or not.
So did you?
So we had no experience in that.
Did you consult the charter and get any clarity from the charter as to what would happen in a situation like this?
I'll be point blank honest, I didn't read the charter until we were doing the charter commission, really stepping into it. It's weird, and I had mentioned this last time. When we got our jobs, if you will, our
Yes.
positions, you don't get like a binder, like,
No.
this is how
We
it
got a
goes.
pin.
We
got the
So yeah, there wasn't that
It's
clarification.
not like training.
And that's something I would hope for in the future,
Point
again,
of
that's.
clarification, we're working on that.
We are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause even at one of the things I mentioned at the last meeting or the one before, was the abbreviations.
Yeah.
It's hard, there's so many, it sounds stupid, silly, but there are so many. And everyone talks about them, and I'll be honest, once you've been in the position, you use them.
It's like
Not
special
necessarily
education,
correctly,
holy
but-
mackerel.
But yeah, so
Yeah,
I
but there's no
apologize.
training, like to his point, like we're elected and you're like, okay, here, run our town, here's the pin, you got sworn in. And our first meeting, it's not like we have Board of Selectmen training, there's no manual, we're just gonna figure it out as we
So
go.
when
Here's your budget, go.
Well, we can put in the charter, there needs to be an onboarding procedure that will be written by the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
With that, so at least there's something.
So when you guys did look at the charter, when you put this together, were there aha moments saying, oh yeah, so this is how we do this? Or were there moments where you said, oh, that was in your letter to us, which is, this is what we'd like you to look at?
So I
Yeah.
said I never looked at the charter. As I have needed things, I've taken those
You've looked
pieces
in, right.
out of the charter. So for me, there wasn't many aha. There was,
There's some things that I think, few things.
Nuances.
Yeah, nuances, some maybe antiquated things or just, subtle tweaks. I think the bigger things are a lot of things we addressed in the letter that we sent,
I have one technical question and it's, if you have the answer for this. If you wanted us to make policy a defined term, right? Meaning that you wanted us to define it in the charter to give you more clarity. What would you want in it, or rather what would you not want in it?
The charter on page 3 or whatever it is has an organizational structure. I'd put it in bold. Honestly, it's already there, it's ironic. We're just not really digesting the charter, and I think it's part of just opening our eyes and seeing what you've already provided for us. The path is there, so
Yeah.
I have nothing to add for that scenario.
Thank you.
So I have a question about your comment regarding having an HR department now.
Yes.
In the charter, in section 502, there's a personnel section under the town manager. This is, the town manager shall be the personnel director for the town. Is that no longer the case because now we have an HR director
And
And an HR
assistant.
specialist,
who
yes.
reports to the
town manager.
So the town manager is not acting as the HR manager
No.
anymore because we've got a new role.
Are you okay with me talking?
Yeah, I mean, that is correct.
We've done some bobbing and weaving, if we will, so it's good that we're gonna get this all clarified in black and white. We've also, or I won't say we, because we have not really participated, but some things have been reorganized under our newest town manager and our temporary one, meaning the interim town manager.
Right.
Where some of the departments report to the deputy town manager. And I'll be honest, from my own personal perspective, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because it's like an extra cook.
And we didn't-
everything comes back to cooking.
Well, the other thing also is that
Pepperoni pizza, like last time.
as a board, and maybe we don't need to know this, but we found out by accident most of the time. We were never given a new org chart of like who is reporting into the town manager and who's now reporting into the deputy town manager, which departments are reporting into who's now reporting into HR, and what, so this reporting structure even amongst the town is, I mean, you probably know, I don't know. I know that only from being liaison and working with some departments directly did I then find out that, now, because I went to Mark about something and found out, well, he said, talk to Tom because that department now reports into him. And I said, okay, didn't know
The
that.
deputy town manager, Franklin, why don't you clue us in who he's got? He's got social,
Social services,
who else?
IT
IT,
and the town clerk.
Which is weird to me,
Who has that, who has?
The deputy.
deputy town manager.
And I don't know exactly the breakdown of what Deputy Town Manager Fitzgerald's responsibilities are with him. I do know when they do leave requests, it goes to him. And when they sometimes have administrative questions, they go to him before going to Mark. And I know from my experience, it could be to streamline some of the activities and operations of those departments that to free up Town Manager Mark Nelson with other duties. Those three departments, for whatever reason, I don't know the reasons why they were decided to be given to the Deputy Town Manager purview. I can find out that information if requested. But those three departments go to Tom for basically acting as the town manager of them. And then if Tom cannot assist or help with anything, it goes to Mark. So that's what I know as of right now.
Doesn't that break the charter?
I don't agree with that. 'cause
Well,
there's
ultimately, at the end of the day,
Right.
the town manager is the personnel director, just because there's
But not really anymore.
If they're
Since
not
he's-
deferring to him, if it's strictly to go to the deputy, it's one thing if the deputy then reports to, it's just really a delegation of different responsibilities, like
Yeah.
you said, to free up some day-to-day time, but he's still the ultimate
Exactly.
decision maker
At the end of the day,
but to have the entire department solely report to.
So this actually begs a bigger question that I'm gonna ask.
No.
So prior to town manager form of government, it would be an interesting analysis of what roles we had here in town hall and what has been added because we've added this form of government because it ultimately adds to the budget. And so we've added a layer. But with that layer, what else came with it in terms of personnel? And how does it affect our budget? Because it seems now what we're talking about, like all these new people, and what they do, it's obviously not consistent with how the charter's written. I don't know if you could really put an order in the charter because that evolves.
Correct.
Okay, but there's a lot, it seems to be like there's added layers, but it would be an interesting analysis to look at what we look like. Cause our population hasn't grown, okay? We've been pretty flat for decades, okay?
Yeah.
So it's not like we've gotten larger, okay, but our government's gotten larger. And in what roles have we gotten larger and in what departments? Because
I would almost defer, I don't think our government has gotten larger, but our administration has gotten larger.
well, we'll
Same.
the same thing,
Yeah.
like
Well,
administration,
yes.
government, whatever you wanna call it. So this building, staff has gotten larger. And it would be an interesting analysis of what existed pre-town manager, what existed when we first converted to town manager, and then what exists today to see, have we cut back? Have we gotten larger? Where have we gotten larger? Where have we cut back? And is it appropriate? Because it seems like we keep adding things.
It's less centralized.
Right,
In certain,
and
yeah, the roles.
and here we're having this conversation about who's the chief elected officer and the chief administrative officer, but now we've got all this convoluted who reports to whom and all these other layers. I just think it would be a curious investigation into
That
that.
should be in the organizational chart referenced in our charter.
But-
It should not be allowed, in my opinion alone, to reorganize the organizational chart. And I just, honestly, it's my personal perspective that having some departments report to the deputy almost lowers how important they are.
Yeah.
You know, they
Yeah.
Yeah.
can't speak to the chief advocate
Yeah.
or chief administrative officer. You know, you lose the continuity or
Right.
you
And it
know.
goes to that defining where I started with, making sure that the roles, defining the role of the chief administrative officer, when they start to get loose in this perspective, redefine it, and that these need to stay either under this org chart, under the chief administrative officer, and define the chief executive officer.
Well, because specifically, the charter does mention that the town clerk specifically reports to,
That's one of our departments.
right,
It's a
it's one of the
department
department heads that are protected under the chart, like,
It goes right to
it
the
goes
town.
right to the town manager.
Yeah.
But now they're not reporting to the town manager, they're.
No, the town clerk still is.
Yeah, point of clarification, the town manager, who's the director and has designated the deputy town manager as the first point of contact. Those three departments, IT, social services, and the town clerk can always go directly to Mark at any point. It's for the administrative day-to-day things, the deputy town manager is able to handle most asks, and I don't know why those three departments were selected, but they always have the opportunity to go to Mark. It's not like the deputy town manager is their overseer, and just to further say, he is the personnel director, as mentioned in the charter. He has hiring and firing ability, the HR director does not. Any decisions regarding that, the HR director brings up to the town manager.
So what does the HR director do?
Handle all the human resources, employee benefits,
But it has no
Everything on the
power
back
to
end.
do anything regarding hiring or firing.
the opinion of the HR director and everything is usually taken by the town manager and
Okay.
consulted with making any hiring and firing decisions. But just at the end of the day, the town manager has the ultimate authority. The HR director has a lot of weight and.
Right, but the town manager can override that.
Of course.
I would just clear up that this position of HR director was created last year
Recently,
in
Yes.
last year's budget with the approval of the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
It's not, the town manager
No,
didn't
no, no,
just invent the position.
right.
But, and I would also suggest that, I don't think it's true that having an HR director means we're violating the charter. I think that provision is more along the lines of what we've been talking about. in terms of distinguishing the responsibilities of the town manager and his office
I don't think it's the
from
HR
those
thing, it's changing who's reporting to the deputy.
And that's the question, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of what a chief administrative officer does, I mean, a lot of that is figuring out how they want the office to run. But we could clarify exactly how far that goes
That's right.
in relation to the Board of Selectmen and what needs to be approved.
Can I see you guys, cause I hear the struggles, right? The tensions that are happening. But my question is really, how are you reviewing this office? How are you reviewing the town manager? Because what I'm hearing from you guys, so I know it's somewhat of a loaded question. And the reason I ask that is I hear the struggles, but I feel, and you, Steve, you said this earlier, you guys have the power to fix them. The whether you're in contract negotiations or not, you guys can fix that tomorrow. You know, whether the reporting requirements, you guys can fix that tomorrow. I don't know if they're charter issues, but it speaks to this, and I'm not trying to, it speaks to this, how are you reviewing them? Because there's that mechanism where you can say, come on, again, I go back to one of the very first things you said, Dana. You guys are elected, you're hiring that individual.
Right.
They report to you.
Correct.
You guys can,
We are actually in the midst of looking at his review currently, and we've had one or two executive sessions on this. Two executive sessions. We all have homework that we are assigned to be doing, and I need to finish my homework. So we have a process, and we have, part of our executive session was reviewing the review process to make sure that we are capturing what really we need to do. And it's not specific to this town manager, for the town manager. And what is going to be the review process? And what is then, you know, how do we get the feedback? What do we want this to look like? And then how is it presented? So, you know, that's been part of it.
Because as we understand it from Heather, who sits on the personnel subcommittee, that there was things that were added to the review process that were in the charter but not on the
That
job
was
description.
from meeting
Correct.
with you guys.
Right.
We had,
Because
we
we
never
had
had a.
asked that question, and, you know, is it consistent? Is the charter, his review, the
There was
town
like a
manager's
rubric,
review
yes.
and what the contract was that they were hired under, all consistent.
Consistent.
And there was some things in the charter that weren't in the review process that have been added to the review process.
Correct.
They have been at, so one thing to remember, and also it speaks to what we've already been saying. First of all, the reason we have not reviewed them yet, to answer that question, is because the budget got moved up. You know, and before that was the Farms Village thing, so it's just been,
it
kicking it
wasn't a why
down.
question, I was asking how, actually, not why.
Yeah.
So, but also part of our disconnect, which would be fixed with shingle terms, to be honest, is four of us, 4/6 of the board has been on the job for 15 months.
Correct. I agree with
We
this.
didn't know where our power lied. And just like anyone that's starting out in a new job, you don't wanna flex on your first day.
Come on. With my pen, I got my pen, I had the
So,
Steve, have you been reading the paper?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I know some people have been flexing.
sorry.
Wait, I thought, don't I have 5 minutes to tell you how great I am?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
There's one, after this discussion, I am curious to know what boards you liaise on and what your experience there is.
Me, personally?
Yeah, because those boards are here,
Yes.
and how do you,
Not a lot.
Yeah.
So I personally am on, I have them down here somewhere, Board of Education, the Culture Parks and Rec. I'm on Simsbury Meadows Performing Arts Center. I am on Aging and Disability Commission. I'm on Fair Rent Commission. I'm on Youth Services Advisory Board and Public Safety.
So
Vice Chair of-
everything.
Vice Chair of Public Safety. And I will tell you that to the best extent that I possibly can, I attend meetings.
You certainly do.
I because I feel that as elected official, if I am to be put on those commissions as a Board of Selectmen and liaison, my job is to attend those meetings. And in some of them, they want me there for input and clarification on things. Others, I am observing and bring back information to the Board of Selectmen. You know, maybe that hasn't happened previously, but yeah, it's a lot of time. But that, for me personally, I attend because I feel that allows me as much information as possible to serve as a Board of Selectmen member to understand all of those commissions and all of those departments and what their needs are. Doesn't mean I'm gonna go and be a spokesperson for them necessarily, come budget, but I have an understanding of why their budget needs are there or why this is happening within that department. So when we are in budget or we have to create a policy or we have to have a discussion of something, at least I have information and that which I feel is helpful to the town and to our other fellow Board of Selectmen and what the community should know. So I do it so that I hope that answered your question.
Yes.
Did you know, just a little background information, both of you, either of you, when you were running for Board of Selectmen, it would take this much time of being liaisons to all these other boards and stuff?
I actually did.
Okay.
I did. And I knew that there was gonna be some committees and honestly, I think, kudos to our first select woman. She asked us what, out of these, what would you like to do? But I think she also did a good job of not only listening to things that we think would be a good fit for us, but also put us in areas because they may be part of our own wheelhouse to begin with and have institutional knowledge of. I mean, like, there's no secret that I have a performing arts background. So there are certain fits, I have deep ties with education and advocacy, especially surrounding special education, years of advocacy in that realm. So I wanted to be part of Board of Education, not that I have really any say of what they do, but I'm there and I understand where they are and especially with their own budget workshops. And it is helpful for when they are in Board of Ed workshops, when I come back and explain with their own budget and I understand where they're coming from.
It's extremely helpful to us too.
Yeah.
I will say that, absolutely. Whenever we have a question, you're right there. You're always helpful. And we greatly appreciate it. Absolutely.
So.
Good to know, thank you.
Yeah, it is, but it's a lot and maybe some people didn't know and maybe people won't know.
It's this board though, to answer your question directly, the previous boards did not, it's crazy, all of us go to almost all of the meetings now. That's unprecedented, I've been on various boards for years. The BOS liaison showed up the first day, I was like, oh, I don't have to be here? But we literally go to all of them, it's just the nature of the people you happen to have. But it's a lot of time.
Not everybody on all previous boards.
Oh, she just said, did you?
Yes.
Yes, Jackie, no, I did.
Yes.
Thank you for your comments.
I will say that we've danced around this, but we've talked about, you've talked to the previous boards. Yes, I am in favor of extending the term limits because I think 2 years is way too short. Yes, I'm in favor of staggered terms because I think in many ways, although I think we're an amazing board and I think we're doing good things, it could have gone away that did a disservice to the town, having a whole new board. I mean, it could have legitimately been an entirely new board all at once. And the learning curve on that is just too steep and that would have, especially with a new town manager coming in, at the same time, which coincided, it didn't always, but if you had a staggered board, you would have some institution, you would have continual, some continuancy of policy, but continuancy of administration as well.
I think you've all said the same thing.
Yeah. So I knew they did, but I was just making sure that you knew
You also believe that.
believe that. Is there anything other questions that you have for me or things you'd like to know?
No, we appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephen, for adding some additional context.
And thanks to both of you for all that you do for the town.
Yes.
Well, thank you, and thank you all for serving. We had
Yeah, did you think it would take this much time?
We got the comfy chairs this time.
Yes.
That was smart, I caught that.
That was
Jeff and I
Franklin.
served on the last
kinda,
charter revision,
You know.
and,
So they're
we
gluttons
had-
for punishment.
Yeah, we had 21 meetings at the last charter revision.
Yeah, I
You're gonna hit that by May.
Yeah.
No, but I have to admit that I think, give us kudos, but like I think we did a really good job of putting this commission together, and I thank you all for what you're doing, and I think you are doing a great job. Also the path for unaffiliated to serve on boards and commissions, it would be helpful, and I think we did a nice job balancing that here. I think there should be other ways, in town, whether appointed or elected.
Yeah, we've talked about that quite often.
Yes.
It will continue to come up. Considering it's the largest group
Correct.
in town.
Absolutely, and often feel that they don't have a voice.
We just have to navigate Connecticut state statute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that, so, thank you for that. So thank you for your time. We're gonna move on to the next
Of course.
item. So we're actually going to discuss. We've received many comments from other chartered board and commission. And I thought we would go through, we're not gonna read them all out loud, they're all part of public record, but I thought we would go through the boards as they were in our packets. I don't think I've mixed up my packet. So, all together. So the first one I had was the zoning board of appeals.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Not that we, that's why we just had
No,
something tonight too, so that's what's
No,
going
it
on
was part
Yeah,
of
sorry.
tonight's, okay. So ZBA, Joanne
Yes.
Hogan submitted comments on behalf of their board. There were some changes that they suggested because regarding the number of elected officials, the charter says there's 3, they currently have 6 with 2 alternates and a quorum is 4, so obviously that's something
Yeah.
we'd want to address.
Something
How did that happen? I don't know, but
Who knows?
Frankly, even like, how do they go from 3 to 6?
I don't know.
Do they know that they only need 3 or I mean?
This is news to me too.
I'm trying to find them in the charter and I apologize. I didn't,
Are they staggered? Is it just half?
I think they're staggered.
I apologize.
If it's not under their section, it might be under the section with the terms number.
Is it appointed board? No, it's
it's an elected board.
elected board, sorry. 3 members. Yeah, it does, okay, 3024.
Yeah, so it says 3 members of the zoning board of appeals.
Which one did you find, which section?
It's
302, section B, number 4.
number 4.
Here's the top of the page.
So it says for a term of at least 4 years for section B, and then item 4 says 3 members of the zoning board of appeals.
But
I think there's-
she's got.
She's got it wrong, because
3 of them are elected every 2
2
years to a
years.
4-year term.
Is that where it makes it confusing? If their own board is
it's
confusing?
basically a staggered board.
Exactly.
It is a staggered board.
Right.
But it makes it confusing because I read this as there's 3 members.
Me too.
Because nowhere else does, I'm not seeing where it states that the other 4 are elected every 2 years.
Well, because at the beginning of section 302, it says there will be elections held biennially.
Yeah.
And there shall be elected the following officers. And then that means every 2 years, 3 members of the zoning board of appeals will be elected to a 4-year term.
Yeah.
So it's rather elegant.
I think it's rather confusing. I love the word on that one, Rob.
The chair didn't understand. Maybe there needs to be some clarification of how that's written.
We can do it another way.
Would it make, and again, cause I saw this in a few others, are like, well, these are alternates, these aren't, this is.
It's not
Would it be almost clearer, especially for boards? These are the elected boards, these are the terms, these are staggered, these are not, these are alternate, versus
Each board.
this very elegant way of putting it makes it a little
We could do it.
The good news is the
Work.
town clerk understands all of this, and they
Yeah.
complete the ballot, and they say,
They had the
this
right
is what's there. I think one of the things to look at is, like, the zoning board of appeals, which, by the way, that's where I started out, as a zoning board of appeals alternate, all right? And many moons ago, but anyway, so the question is, do some of these boards, if you've got 6 members, do you really need 2 alternates? I know they talk about a quorum, but if you don't have a quorum, you just cancel your meeting.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, that's one of the things I looked at, is some of these boards have alternates, do they really need them?
We don't have,
Well, I think the comment was that if you only have 4 people there, you gotta have a unanimous board. So if you have an alternate, at least you might have a chance of.
Yeah,
Sometimes zoning has
But
to
if you get 6 members, yeah. Oh, okay.
So anyway,
So the other item that she brought up was not the opportunity for unaffiliated residents to serve on the board because it's an elected board. There's state statutes that have to be followed. And this keeps coming up.
yeah,
I mean, one of the things that I thought of was, because I'm now a U, is having the town clerk being more transparent about the process, because we can't change state statute, okay? But we can provide a roadmap for residents to understand how to participate in elected boards by getting on the ballot, because it's confusing. So if the town clerk is charged with, and that's just a policy decision
Yeah,
for the Board of
that's
Selectmen,
something-
it's not a charter thing.
that's something they can do.
Yeah.
Right
tomorrow.
now, right, but I think it's more about transparency, I mean, that's the theme of all of this, but I think that if there's a roadmap that's provided, but I don't think we have to address it in the charter because there's not a state statute that goes with it.
The
No,
other
the-
thing go ahead.
Sorry.
It's
But there is a roadmap, and if we took it, for those of us, who took the time to actually read through the coded language there, similar to this, which we understand because we have the training for it, but in plain English
It's
doesn't
confusing,
read
right.
as well, is maybe it's we just leave the charter alone because we can't do anything about it anyway. But I think it's probably a good idea to have a flow chart to say if you
Right.
are unaffiliated,
This is,
to have it
this
as
is your
visual-
path.
Yeah, and have a visual way of saying that, because many unaffiliateds want to remain unaffiliateds, not align with a party to serve a particular post. And should be allowed to do so.
And it's an impediment if there's too many steps that
Too many
it
steps,
dissuades
yes.
participation.
When we
so.
report,
When
when
we
we
do the
ultimately do
report.
our report, we can recommend that
Yes.
the Board of Selectmen do that,
Yes.
even if it's not in the charter.
The other thing.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, we can't do anything about it, but we can acknowledge
Right.
you need 1% of signatures, which an example, 3,500 votes. For the past winter, that's not necessarily unachievable, but it's a process.
but to make
And
it
also-
clear, concise.
Yeah, also I know that at least one member of the board of, well, Jeff's gone, but one member of the Board of Education who now serves as a Republican was an unaffiliated voter, came to the town committee and, said, I'd like to get on the board. And it was like, okay, this isn't our spot, are you willing to change? And they're like, yeah, I'll change, so they changed. And, basically, he's a U. Basically, and I think there's a Democrat on there as well, who was a U before, and the party. Now, one thing I want to point out, I went to the town registers, one of the registrars. There's 19,557 total registered voters in town, okay? There are 316 that are registered either as the Green Party, the Working Party, or whatever other party that they're there. There's 7,901 unaffiliated voters. Now, I didn't get a breakdown whether that was a U or an I, because you can register as an independent, which means you're the independent party. Now, the Republicans had 4,450. The Democrats have 6,890, okay? So the Democrats have 35.2%, the Republicans have 22.8%, and the unaffiliated are 40.4%, okay? Now, if you combine the Democratic Party and the Republican Party together, that's 58.0% of the voters are registered to a party. So, you know, we hear about, so it depends upon how you cut the numbers, okay? But still, the majority are registered to one party or the other.
But only a little over half is being represented because of the party affiliation versus, but
Well, 58%,
yeah.
but yeah, if you want that, but.
And point of clarification, Madam Chair, to answer Commissioner Shivaswamy's comment on the process. On January 13th, Deputy Town Manager Fitzgerald actually, working with the town clerk, made a kind of a roadmap and a flow chart that I can send out to the commission. So a vacancy occurs on a commission. If an unaffiliated can fill it, so it means the person that left that commission, let's say there's a commission, someone leaves. If they are not affiliated with a political party, the town manager's office advertises the opening on the first of the month. We do this off the town website. Verified unaffiliated applications, if we get them, are sent to the town clerk. Are sent from the town clerk to the town manager's office. After that happens, in 30 days, we do the town manager or his designee interviews those interested qualified people, and then after 10 days after that, maximum of 10 days, town manager recommends the appointment to the Board of Selectmen. So for the time being, that is the process the deputy town manager and the town clerk has made. We advertise it so it requires people to be on the town.
People need to
about
pay
that-
attention.
One thing about that, Franklin, is the current process is for the unelected boards, that the unaffiliated those spots go to the two parties to fill. And then it goes to the Board of Selectmen to agree to that. I think you've got to be a little careful about just automatically having the town manager pick that person without the two parties being aware that you're changing that process. Because that might create some little bit of a dust up.
It's just for if the vacancy is an unaffiliated person.
No, but the unaffiliated vacancies have been filled by the parties.
Oh, I see.
They interview, they go through the vetting process, then they recommend to the Board of Selectmen. What you're talking about is a change that gives the town manager the ability to do that. And I think there should be a discussion with the town chairs before that, because that came up once before when Eric Weldon was the first selectman, and he was going to do that, and they agreed not to do that, to continue to let the parties do the vetting of the unaffiliated. It just saves a step for the Board of Selectmen to have to do that.
So this issue of unaffiliated, it's not really on tonight's agenda, but we're obviously gonna spend a lot of time on it before we're done.
Yes, we are.
And I would also add, as someone who's on a party's town committee that I know, that we need more people to run for office and to apply for positions. It's hard to fill these vacancies. So one of the things we can also encourage the Board of Selectmen to do is clarify not only how someone can be an unaffiliated person can fill the unaffiliated slots on boards and commissions, but explain to people in general, whether through the parties or not, how they can run for office and how they can end up on an elected.
Because the elected versus the
Appointed.
appointed is two very different paths.
Yes.
Because
Because there's
appointed is almost
positions and-
easier, I mean, in a way, to fill
Yes.
three
Absolutely.
slots.
And and I we don't all agree about how much needs to be done, but I can't think of any reason to object to having the steps very clearly laid out and very accessible.
Yeah, because that's 40% of the town that could be involved in elections, in a town where there are only a few people running for spots. And if we just made it clear to them, this is what you need to do.
It's about process. and
Yeah, it's just
transparency.
it's a process, and that's what I'm hearing also from the committees.
Yeah.
When they speak about, you know, what the town manager, their relationship with the town manager, it's a process issue, you know. We want information at this time, we want to, you know, clarity on when meetings are going to be done and so forth. I don't think there's an issue about whether or not you want to serve or whether or not you want to do this, but how do we get what we need in order for us to be able to serve? And it's a process related issue. What can the charter do about it? The charter can make process an important portion. If you think about the constitution, you've got the process, you've also got the concept. So you can say, you know, just like we have due process is written into the constitution, we can write that in here and make it a requirement. And we don't tell anybody what the process is. We just tell them.
change.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
We
it's
tell
the
them that
statute.
there needs to be a process.
Yeah. Acknowledge that there is a process and
Yeah.
make the policy recommendations for now, but the board of selectmen can change it.
Yeah, you
as
can
it-
change
yeah.
it because, you know, you think about it, 5 years ago, there was no such thing as a video meeting. You actually had to come in person and participate, right? Now we can add that to the process, the charter doesn't have to get involved. What you need to have is a mandate that there needs to be a process.
Okay.
Right, so the next board was the library board of trustees, and you'll have to forgive me because I'm not understanding what section
Yeah,
she's
I was gonna
referring
say
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she's referring to sections 34-2 and 34-7.
For the three,
Yeah. It's gotta be right near where we were looking.
yeah.
But it does refer to the board of library as trustees. She's asking them to be board of trustees and not directors, but I don't see reference to directors, so I'm a little confused. So I don't know if you can help me, Franklin, on
And if
this.
you look at 301, it does,
Say trustee.
but it does say, that there's 9 members, so again, she must be looking at a different statute or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just,
State statute?
That's what I'm thinking maybe.
Would she be looking at the codes
That's what I was, yeah.
instead
That's
of
what
the
it sounds,
charter?
it
Yeah, 'cause
sounds like a code.
because these sections are not charter sections.
Right.
Correct.
Sounds like
Chapter
state code.
34 of the code is library,
Okay.
and she's talking about section 2, board of directors, and section 7, designation as principal library. That's not the purview of the charter.
That's in the
The
code.
code can be amended by the board of selectmen at any
Correct.
time.
That's not,
That's
right,
not,
we're
That's not
but the charter refers to them as the board of library trustees with
Correct.
9 members, so that is what she's asking for, is what we have.
Yes.
Right.
So I can inform Ms. McGrath that
Yes.
we can make this proposal to the board of selectmen and get
That
that
they can
change
amend the
fixed.
code,
Of course,
because that's not our purview.
correct.
Okay, so I think, because I was a little confused.
I think we all were.
So,
So I'll
okay,
connect
that
with her
check
with
we
that.
just did.
That was an easy one.
And that was easy. We're done on that.
Check.
got that one done.
We get a gold star. The next one is
Water pollution.
water pollution control. Which was 3 pages.
Because there isn't a short one, is there?
Heavily defined by general method.
I mean, a lot of it refers to general statutes, which we don't have
We have no control over.
no control over, right?
Was this more of like a, I was a little confused of what was she recommending?
So I go to the second page, the bottom paragraph, which is really non-statute related, right?
And they're appointed by the board of
And they're appointed by the Board of Selectmen anyway. Okay, so I don't think they're, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the commission's recommending any changes.
No.
I think they're primarily just clarifying.
They're just clarifying their roles, but they're not, I'm not seeing any changes that they're asking.
I think like almost every board, they're like, we need to figure out how to do them more. unaffiliated, but I would love for them to give a suggestion.
This is why we didn't invite every board.
Right, but I would love for, like, everyone said, we gotta do this, but can you give a suggestion of how we can do this?
And it says by statute that no more than one half of the members' respective terms can end in a year, so they already by state statute have staggered
It's a
terms,
term, yeah.
so
Yeah, that rules, yeah, exactly.
they have a mix of political affiliations, and that party affiliation is immaterial to the work of keeping our water safe. Certainly hope so, but that's just an aside. I don't think they're asking for any changes. I appreciate their comments and their understanding of their role, but I don't think that there's anything for us to address in the charter unless.
They're in 610.
Right.
Yeah.
610.
Unless I'm missing something.
Should we ask them what they're asking of us?
I don't think they're asking anything of us.
Laying out
What
what
they
they
do.
do.
What they do,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I think that's right.
Well, it's in the
Because at
record now,
end,
right?
at the end, he says, we remain personally available to answer any questions or concerns that the commission may have. My question is there a question?
No. I mean,
That's my question. I mean,
I think
they know this better than I ever will, right? So is there a question?
We asked for their comments, right? And so they-
right.
And then where does it end?
Written comments are good.
We're good.
We got the comments.
We got that one.
So we checked,
We're all
we
thinking
did
of you,
two things,
Sarah.
three. Okay, so the next one is from the Conservation Commission. I don't remember what chapter they're in. What section?
They did not feel that any changes in the structure and mission were necessary.
605, right?
So.
Well, I think they feel they're kind of left out.
Yes, so I think that, but some of Marjorie's comments are consistent with some other comments that we've heard from the public about a mandate about public audience,
Yes.
okay? So, and transparency, and so I think that this is a conversation we're probably having about all of our town committee meetings. About should the charter mandate public audience? And this is aside, public hearings require public audience during the hearing time until the hearing's closed, but this is public audience at the regular meetings.
I was
Some
shocked
boards
too,
and
but I don't
commissions
know.
do it, some don't, you do it twice because you're an overachiever, Jeff. Maybe you wanna rethink that.
Did they want to rethink
Trust me, I
that?
do.
But that's one of the things I'm hearing from a couple of these commissions is that public audience should be a mandatory function of.
Because
Well,
there's
it
no.
is a public function, so anyone should be able to attend.
Attend and speak.
And
Yeah,
speak.
and have the opportunity to speak. I mean, it is our town and our democracy, everyone should be able to attend. And you know, if you say, just like we have, 3 minutes, and you also have the ability to send in your comments, which we are required to review, that would be a good thing. I mean, why would you have a closed public meeting? It's public.
I'm confused, are they not permitted
that's what I was.
to have
It's
public
left up to
audience
the-
now?
It's left up to the boards, it's left up to the chair
So why
and the
don't,
boards to decide whether or not they're going to have public comments or not, and in many cases, they choose not to.
Because I know they had public comment at a meeting last month.
Point of clarification, the public can of course always attend a public meeting unless it's an executive session.
That's right.
They just don't have the opportunity to have a speaking slot,
Speaking
but they can always attend, just for clarification
And
of
you
the
can
record.
always send in your comments too,
Of
right?
course.
You can
So we're
send
talking
your
about
comments.
public audience like we have and several boards
Yes.
have, but it's not consistent across all the
No.
boards and commissions.
Because the charter doesn't mandate them to have it, and what we've heard from the public, and with a lot of our public comments, and now we're hearing from a commission chair that public audience we should consider, I don't know how everybody else feels, but it sounds like we should consider this as a potential change,
Yeah,
as a mandate to have require public audience.
Yeah, but I think the committee should also, or commission, should have input on how that happens, like in zoning.
Yeah,
It's public comment before each person appears. You can have your, whatever, few minutes to talk about, there's a site plan here and people next door wanna say, hey, this is good or bad for me.
Yeah, and I think it should be public audience during that meeting. I think how it's run is up to each commission. But to be not said that you don't have or you do have it is so wishy-washy, and I think that's one of the things the charter can help, is clarify it.
Yeah.
Not only public comments, but we're talking about like public comments being made into the minutes, written comments being made into the minutes, all that stuff is up right now.
because not every meeting's recorded.
Oh, okay, that's,
Right,
I
so-
did not realize.
Well, I don't think every meeting's recorded.
Pretty much every meeting is recorded. Yeah,
With all these boards and commissions?
They
yeah.
have to
God help 'em.
be, this is
Right.
this is a public meeting, so they have to be.
Well, not record, like not SCTV.
No, no.
SCTV does as many of them
As
as they have staff for.
Right,
But they're
and it's
being
quite a few.
reported.
but we've got reporting.
Yeah.
They have to have minutes, but they don't have to be
But again,
recorded, right?
Again, as chair, I'm just,
I'm
if
shocked.
Marjorie's watching for some reason, right?
I'm sure Marjorie is. Hi, Marjorie.
She can do this
Just decide to do it,
correct.
yeah, that's
She's
why-
the chair, she
yeah.
can put,
Right.
yeah,
As chair, she has,
I just want her to,
she has power to set the agenda, she can include public audience.
I mean, we're talking about as larger, but I just wanna make sure she knows she's got the authority to do this
Right.
Like
right
whatever they
now,
want.
yeah, exactly.
Yes. But it would.
But she is the chair and that
Right.
current board have the authority to
Yeah.
do, but I think what she's also saying is the charter outlives the current people
Oh, yeah,
on the commissions, so it should be somehow.
Maybe I said it, I just didn't want her
Right.
that
Right.
she had to feel she had to wait for us.
Right,
is what
oh,
I'm
yeah, no, no,
saying.
Yeah.
The other thing she
Yeah.
brings up in here though is that she's recommending that the charter does a joint meeting of all the land use boards on an annual basis. And maybe that's, we haven't really gone down the rabbit hole of P and Z yet, so maybe that's part of that rabbit hole.
But does that belong in a charter as to mandating how they meet and when they meet? I mean, wouldn't that be left up to the boards to decide how they want to meet?
To the
What if, what if the nature of our land changes? There's a diamond mine under one of those pieces of land and there's the federal government gets involved somehow. Yeah, it can, I mean, this has happened, like in Africa, this happens all the time. And then all of a sudden, the use of the land and how it is governed changes. So perhaps we can recommend to them saying that, this is how you guys should talk to each other, but would the charter be the one to mandate
As
that?
part of, you're
This is
saying.
more like a policy.
Right, you're saying as part of our final report, although the commission did not recommend joint meetings, it is suggested that
That's
there
right,
be a joint meeting annually.
that's right,
Or
something
on
like
a
that.
consistent basis, because maybe it's not maybe it's 18 months, who knows, I mean,
Yeah.
there's.
Because what we can do is we can take all of the comments and say these belong in the charter, these do not belong in the charter, but they're good ideas. Here's a list of all these good ideas that came to us for you to take and implement.
This proposal isn't a bad, we do this, for the budget. We have a
Your tri-board.
tri-board meeting every year and this year, right, the Board of Finance laid out very clear directives and the two boards performed really well, if I may say so. And it was a real collaboration and it makes sense for the land use boards, at least to get together periodically to know that what their respective concerns are and how that will work, and if someone has struck oil or found diamonds.
And just to say, as someone on the other side of that, I find that meeting, that's one of the most helpful meetings actually, I think, because it sets the guardrails. It's also just good to know what the other two boards are thinking, right? What are the guidelines from you? What's on the mind of the Board of Selectmen? And it's a good forum, it's a good 2 hours just to kind of hash through all that stuff.
We should do 2 hours.
Well, something I also saw that she mentioned was about their concern about they don't know about projects that don't require wetland permits. But that's, I don't know, again, that's a charter thing or is that more of a policy that they're not talking
That's more of a
about?
policy
Right,
thing.
that's why I'm like,
I would think that it's more policy because
State statutes. Corps of Engineers stuff.
Right,
Yeah,
I mean, they have to follow the guidelines of if so.
I mean, they may not
They're gonna
know
hear
all the
those
developments going
applications.
on, but because it doesn't affect
Wetlands, they're not gonna see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, if there's nothing flagged on the property.
Right.
it's-
I mean, they wanna know, then they should go to the meeting. They should go to planning and zoning.
But, you know, maybe that's more about
Procedure.
a policy about the collaboration with the land use boards coming from staff, with the assistance of staff versus like a
Yeah.
charter.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that, you know,
Yeah.
she made an issue, but it sounds like, again, a recommendation out of all this.
Well, what we did when we were doing a bylaws revision from one of the nonprofits is that the market had expanded outside of Hartford. So what we did was we added it in the mission saying, you know, collaboration with other arts organization in the Hartford region and beyond. Because that would require all the organizations to talk to each other. And we had the first jam session 2 weeks ago, it was amazing. But it forced our organization to initiate it because it was in the chart, it was in the bylaws. And so, you know, that's how we fixed that.
So one of the things she's pointing out in here is that there seems to be a conflict between inland wetlands and conservation. So inland wetlands has state statutes that they have to follow. Conservation is charged with something different.
I didn't know that is.
So,
What authority do they have to make?
well, they don't seem to have much authority. Because they don't have a budget. They're supposed to be, it sounds like they're an advisory role regarding conservation concerns. And so that's, I think, where she's taking issue, where the referrals aren't coming in front of the Conservation Commission, not necessarily the Inland Wetlands Commission, but the Conservation Commission, even though they're the same board. So,
But she's saying in here, Conservation Commission is authorized by Connecticut general statutes to conserve, develop, supervise, and regulate
but I don't know
natural
what statute that
resources.
is.
I don't either, she didn't refer to it.
Well, assume there is a statute, and so what does she want?
So Franklin, I know Bob's not here tonight, and I did mention to him that we would ask him legal questions. If there was a question, I wanna make sure that we're addressing Marjorie's concerns, and maybe if he can clarify what state statute the Conservation Commission operates under, so we understand if there's a gap in the chart. I wanna make sure we just address her concern
Yeah.
appropriately, cause I don't know what statute that is, and I'm not gonna
The
attempt
last
to-
line too is, there's a comment saying the comments do not relate to inland wetland permits that are before the committee. I wonder if that's part of the reason they do comments or no comments. I know there's been debate about setting guidance that you should keep it on topic, but you can't require anyone to speak only on the topics at hand. But you can open public audience or comment or not.
7-131A.
What is 7-131?
7-131A is the statute.
The state statute.
What is, I don't,
Just
Conservation
GSA,
Commission, oh yeah, it's
Conservation Commission.
from the general statute.
So it sounds like it's mandated.
Well, any town may establish a conservation commission,
That's optional.
not fewer than 3 nor more than 11 members. To be appointed by the chief executive.
Like a point.
Yeah.
Some towns they are appointed. Some towns zoning is appointed and planning is appointed by the first selectman or the town manager.
They also have alternates on there, so they have 7 members, including 2 alternates. That's a big board. They serve 4 years.
It sounds like
So there, it's a lengthy statute. There are things that conservation commissions are authorized to do, but which are not required.
I guess the question would be, what is required to go in front of them from a land use application, because I think that's what she's questioning, if I'm interpreting her comments right. Like, are there things that,
Well, they,
I hate to ask, but
no,
okay, I'm sorry, I'm just asking.
no, but are there, is there something that's a requirement in the state statute
Yeah, I'm
that
looking.
is not happening from a land use perspective?
She's referencing the open space committee is the only avenue of such communication, so I don't know the open space committee is.
So they are authorized under the sections that are here under section 605
Yeah.
of the general statutes, and we just need to know what that is. And if they've been appointed as per 131, 131, their responsibilities, I'm guessing, are 131A, 22A to 42 and 22A to 42A of general statutes. And perhaps what she's trying to say is that she's not able to fulfill these responsibilities for reasons in this which state that she doesn't have a budget and it's volunteer, and that there's a lack of referrals or requests from other town commissions over land use decisions. So she's not getting information and she doesn't have a budget. And so that's something that I don't know how the charter can address that as much as this goes back to perhaps saying there needs to be process for every one of these committees established so that they can do their jobs.
I also don't like guessing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because then
Absolutely.
we're reading more into it and or
Just like the other one is just a little explaining
Yeah,
what's
maybe-
working and what doesn't.
maybe she meant something entirely.
A quick read of the statute suggests that the Conservation Commission, if we have one, is required to keep certain records about open space. And it may propose conservation measures, and it may do a lot of things. It's not charged with approving
Land use
construction or
applications.
land use application. So
Okay.
that falls within inland wetlands. So
Do we need clarification from Marjorie of what she wants?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Charter related, not
Not-
policy related or procedural.
Right, so maybe we need to just go back to Marjorie and ask her from a charter standpoint,
Yeah, what does she wanna see?
what changes does she wanna see in the charter versus what she seems to be asking for primarily are policy related.
Yeah.
because she's saying that they have no voice in many municipal land use decisions, which is contrary to Connecticut statute. That might be a little
Yes, so
extreme.
so that's why I'm wondering if she's looking at this and saying that she's not able to fulfill her responsibilities here because of what's written in this first full paragraph here. But
That's a lot of ifs though.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
If this, then that, then maybe this, I don't know.
We'll just ask.
So we just,
Yeah.
we're not checking that off, we're gonna ask for clarification from her.
Well, it's interesting because that chair is part of the open space committee. Well,
It's one of the members of the open space committee.
which I know we might wanna look at too, because there's a lot of committees that are overlapping here.
Well, because the open space committee has representation from various boards on it, including the first selectman.
Right, it almost sounds like that
There's someone
annual
from zoning,
meeting-
someone from planning.
It almost sounds like the annual meeting is exactly what the open space
Right.
committee does. So is she not going to this open space? Again, this is policy, but then I'm a little confused, but.
Okay, so we're gonna get some clarification from Mark.
So Madam Chair, do you want me to reach out to Bob, or since Commissioner Helfand found the statute 7-131A, do we just want me to ask
You
clarification?
just need to ask clarification, I think, from Marjorie.
Kinda sounds like this, it's an appointed board by the Board of Selectmen and what they're doing, I think is what the Board of Selectmen wants them to do, so
Right.
do we need to hear from the Board of Selectmen? What is this committee supposed to function?
Why do we let them?
Do you need them? What do you want them to do? Are they?
Or is it, yeah, I mean, because there are appointed, there's commissioned, there's chartered, there's statuted, there's, it's.
Yeah.
Well, do we ask for comments from the Board of Selectmen regarding the Conservation Commission and their role and
I would ask them what
and
they-
get clarification from Marjorie at the same time?
Yeah.
I think
I'd
that-
I'd ask them both.
Yeah, thank you.
Ask BOS what they envision?
Alright, so the next commission is the Historic Commission. Heather Getz, who is the chair of that commission, also happens to be on the Board of Selectmen and happens to live in the historic district, would like us to consider changing the makeup of the district commission so it's consistent with their own handbook that is on our
Shouldn't
website.
there be consistent with the charter?
It says,
I'm just asking.
I think
under
she,
the ordinance established, is that a CGS statute, is that a town ordinance that we don't?
I think it's a town ordinance.
And again, I'm gonna be really naive here. Is the East Weetach Historic District the only historic district we have in town?
Yes,
Okay, that's a little surprising.
yes. No, that's the only historic district. That doesn't mean there's not historic buildings on the
No, not
historic
buildings.
register,
District.
but it's the only historic district.
And
So,
I'm gonna ask a really another stupid question.
We talk.
Do we need this commission? I'm just asking.
Yes, we do.
yes, we do.
Yeah.
By state statute?
Yes.
Thank you,
If
okay.
we have a historic district, we need a historic district.
There's all kinds of requirements put on the homeowners there.
Okay,
Yes,
I just
there's
want,
quite a few requirements on
Yes.
homeowners. And currently it's being administered by George's office, by the town, they come to them with applications like, what color am I painting my house? And can I put this lamp post up and what does my mailbox need to
You
look
need to
like, kind
replace
of
the
thing.
window.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so it's very, and when new properties are built there, they have to conform to that code as well,
Okay.
including the setbacks from the road.
is that gigantic house in the historic
Yes,
district?
it is.
Or they don't do anything and they let it rot, because they don't want to comply.
Because they don't wanna comply, yes.
So she's asking for more members come
That-
from.
That come
district?
from that district, so their handbook, which is a well-written handbook, I believe, former first selectman Anita Miller
Yes.
was the one who established this commission and right there, and who helped write the handbook,
Yes,
the middle
The middle one.
woman.
yes.
And at the time she lived in that district, but so they had always had 3 people, I think, who lived in that district on the commission to kind of protect, and the charter only says one person has to live there, so they're requesting we go.
charters?
I think it's the code.
She references the code.
That's code again.
It's code.
Chart, regarding what?
It's code.
Is it
608, it doesn't seem
It's
to
ordinance.
require that.
It's
It
an
says
ordinance, so
amendment.
this has nothing to do with us then.
Yeah, so it's the code part.
Okay, so you're chicking it off,
Well,
Jesse.
we could put it in
Yeah,
the
right.
charter if we
We
wanted
could put it in
but
there.
Yeah.
We could put it
they
in
could
there.
also-
But will that, again, with your point is, we have a lot of people, we have a lot of gaps in people wanting
Yeah.
to volunteer for commissions and boards. Does that mean we are potentially restricting someone? Let's just say Anita, who I know has moved out of that district, still wants to be on there, she potentially would not be
Oh,
on there.
no, wait, the Historic District Commission is in section 608, it's in here.
Yeah, but
It
that's
is,
not the point.
but it just says consists of 5 members,
Right.
5 regular and 3 alternate. But it doesn't say they have to come from,
Right.
and what she's asking for
Meeting is just.
is that it sounds like she wants it.
Their handbook says at least 3 regular members and 2 alternate members of the commission shall be owners of record or residents within the East Weetog Historic District.
Yes,
And the
that's not,
code just says 1 or more, so.
Right.
Kind of leaves the discretion.
Right,
yes, and the charter doesn't state that,
so she wants that added to the charter.
correct.
Or to the code.
Or to the
Yeah.
code.
If it's,
She's
if,
also on the board of selectmen.
We can't
so she
change
could-
the code.
Right, we can't change it.
No.
I know.
Yeah, right.
But if you want to add to the charter, think about multi-generational Simsbury residents, right? They grew up in that area, they moved to a different part of town, but they want to serve on that district. They should be allowed to do so, because that's part of their heritage, even though they don't live there anymore.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the sentiment, right? But that's actually, I mean, it's not a huge area. I mean, 3 sounds like not a lot of members, but for this,
People live
it could be an issue.
Yeah.
Couple dozen houses.
I guess.
Yeah.
Exactly, I don't.
Has anyone
But I
seen
live in
a
that-
resident,
I lived
you
there,
know,
and so.
where you live requirement on any of the other stuff? I mean, I know.
Well, I understand
The
the
town
where you
manager
live
doesn't have a
requirement for this particular thing, because
Oh, yeah.
it's preserving that area, and I think there was a time, and this is, I don't have proof, but there was a time where some of the regulations weren't always followed, and you know, got a little loosey-goosey and you know, maybe they're reining it back in, I don't know, because there's been some building lately. But do we have to add it to the charter?
Well, that's what I'm saying, what would functionally change or what
Right,
importance does it
exactly.
make if it's, you know,
Can
they're
the-
already doing it.
Can the board of selectmen change the code to require residency versus putting it in the charter?
There was discussion in the last one about the town manager being required to live in the town to be the
Right.
manager. I don't don't think anything was necessarily put in the requirement like that. I'm not sure if there was a reason why not beyond just limiting options.
She's saying is so that the people living there have some protection, so they're not getting
Yeah.
on the other side of town, oh, we want this to look perfect, and yeah, you can't change anything. And they're like, yeah, we can.
I see it both ways, yeah, I do see it both ways.
Yeah.
But again, is that a charter thing or is that more of a policy?
Is that right?
If the code changes, it would functionally be the same thing. The code acts as the law. If the code changes, which the Board of Selectmen can do at their next meeting, and changes, I believe that would satisfy her comment.
Well, then it's
Not
not, and then
going
the
any
charter
further.
that lives for longer than the code,
The code but also could be changed by a future
by
Board
a
of
future
Selectmen.
board,
So
without a charter revision.
it would be more permanent, at least for it would have more lasting impact to change it in the charter. Is I believe Selectwoman Getz's point. Of course, another charter revision commission could come around and change that, but that's with anything we do. The code could also be changed as well for the commission to consider.
So is it better for a code change or a charter change on something that is that specific? Seems to me like a code change.
If you effectively put in
Yes, I
3 or
agree.
more,
Right.
608 section.
The charter should try, in my opinion, should not go into as many detail,
Thank you,
know.
yeah.
Agree.
It's really
It should be a
supposed to be,
governing
it's a
document.
governing document.
Yeah.
It's a document that gives you the structure under which you have the discretion to do these little things as needed, because suddenly, you may find, for instance, somebody decides to be a Simsbury land baron and buys all 12 houses there. And now you don't have 3 owners. It's possible. Or
It's not like
Right.
we have a list of, since a lot of this rests with the Board of Selectmen, I wonder if there's a list that or just send them these
Can we
letters,
create
say
a list of?
these folks are talking about ordinances that are in your purview.
Yeah.
I'll have at it.
So the two comments with the Library Board of Trustees by Ms. McGrath and this,
Should go to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I can send that,
Okay.
Right, cause it's the way I'm reading it, it's already in the ordinance, it's already in the
Exactly,
code.
But just
So
as
it'd be
one
a-
or more.
so would this be, Madam Chair, would this be a Charter Revision Commission recommending the Board of Selectmen
Yes.
enact these changes in these letters?
Consider the changes.
Consider.
Yeah.
Consider.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
No, it's not.
I would say consider, because it's in their purview. I wouldn't wanna mandate what they're gonna change the code to.
We got enough room on it.
Yes.
Looking at the point
That's in the
that one or more
Okay, so we're gonna go to the next one.
Just one point of clarification.
Yes.
She's saying here, the ordinance establishing the historic district, she goes on to say, it says at least 3 regular members and 2 alternate members of the commission shall be owners of record and residents within the East Weetog Historic District. So is that, when she's talking about the ordinance, is that the same thing she's talking about as the code?
Yes,
Okay, so it's already in the code.
yes, the code section 25(3), chapter 25, Historic Commission, article,
No, that's, she's stating,
one or more.
she's stating one or
That's the
more.
one.
I think it's a question, where is this ordinance?
Where's the ordinance live?
Yeah, where's the ordinance where she's talking about,
that could be referring to the Historic District Commission handbook, because
I
if
see.
she's referring to an ordinance establishing in a historic, Simsbury does not have that specific ordinance to my knowledge right now.
Okay.
They only have chapter 25 in the code, and then the previous
and the
charter
code says how
section.
many, 1?
The code says correct, the code only says
One or more.
25-3, one
Or more.
or more members or alternates shall reside in a historic district.
But so
Presumably
essentially,
try to
she's
follow
asking for the code, what we're asking the Board of Selectmen to do is to consider that the code be consistent with the handbook.
Ordinances are created by the Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen.
And, and statutes are the state legislature, so there's definitely two documents being referenced there.
And whatever the state,
So it's almost like the Board of Selectmen should either enforce the ordinance they have or change it.
based off what the state.
Right.
Yeah, should probably figure out what that is.
But that has to do with them and not the charter.
Yes. I mean,
Essentially.
maybe that would be a recommendation, maybe you follow your town's ordinance or you
Right.
change it.
Because we don't know all those ordinances. And I don't wanna know them. There's too many of them. So the next letter came from the DEI Council, from the co-chairs. And they're not recommending any proposed additions or changes to us, but they're requesting that we take under consideration kind of a preamble to the charter that, and I feel like I'm gonna do, what was that Saturday morning cartoons we used to watch about the bills and the
Oh, yeah, Schoolhouse
We the
Rock.
People, Schoolhouse Rock. So it reads, "We the people of the town of Simsbury, Connecticut, in order to promote effective and responsive local self-government, engage the meaningful participation of all residents and create a community where everyone belongs, do hereby adopt this charter. By this action, we recognize our interdependence in achieving long-term shared interests, maximizing the diverse gifts, experience, and perspectives of all residents, creating a sense of belonging that flows from an accepting environment free of discrimination, ensuring equal opportunity to access and contribute to community conditions and resources we all need to thrive, and increasing civic service and participation in ways that facilitate productive deliberation across differences and reinforce unity in decisions, actions, investments that meet the evolving needs of our town."
I like the first sentence, just the first sentence.
Is there currently a preamble on the charter?
No.
Just go
No,
right
it just says
No.
under incorporation,
And
section 1.
do charters have a preamble?
Maybe if they're very old.
Some do. You can, I mean, you can have a preamble.
I mean, is there, my first question would be to Bob, is there a legal requirement to have or not have a preamble? Like, is it prohibited for, under some strange law?
Right.
I haven't seen any preamble in any of the charters I've reviewed.
It's a lot of platitudes, I don't see what really.
It sounds like more a political statement than anything else.
Which we want to stay away from in
Oh.
the charter.
The first sentence is fine, the rest of it is just too much, I think.
And Madam Chair, I can mention that in my research of other charters, there are 12 comparable communities, there was no preamble.
There's no preamble.
Was there one in the P O C D? Does anyone? Well, she says this must be update P O C besides a recent example.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of.
So here's a
parts of
question,
POC.
Assuming a preamble is allowed, do we even need a preamble?
Yeah.
We don't. We don't.
I don't think so.
I think we can decide on whether, when we're done with everything else, we can decide whether.
Sure.
I mean,
we
that,
put in a
this seems like a
preamble.
statement that the Board of Selectmen could adopt.
Yes.
Well, anybody could adopt.
So do we
Which I
wanna
think is pretty much
table
how they
this?
operate already.
Well, what we can do is, this is very well written. I personally do not believe it belongs in a charter. But it can be used as a part of other things that the town wants to do. Parts of it can be used here and parts of it can be used there because it's very well thought out. But do we put it in here? I don't think so. It's not necessary because it's strictly a governing document.
Yeah.
This seems more like policy
Yes.
driven, so do we put this back on the Board of Selectmen as for them to consider?
Yeah, because if this were, say, a non-profit board, right? I would want this with me because if I was applying for grants or if I needed to make
Was
a
this again,
marketing
was this for the
statement. But
Can we adopt it
That's
as
right.
performing arts?
we can do, because we need something like this.
Right.
That's what we
I
need.
think for a more specific purpose, it's good to have a mission statement. I
Yeah.
think we
Because
already
it's more
kinda
like a
know
mission
what.
statement.
I agree with everything in here. I don't think there's
Mhm. Oh,
anything
I-
wrong with saying
absolutely.
everyone's
I just don't
included, you know, like, but
Chart.
I just don't, I don't.
Yeah, I don't think
And-
it's a charter thing, but I do think it's really well written. And I think we can give it to all the boards and committees and say, hey, listen, if you need this to establish your mission, here's some really good language.
Well, maybe we just put it back to the Board of Selectmen and say, this was proposed by the DEI Council as a preamble. We don't think that it's belongs in the charter because it's more in line with policy versus a governing document, and
And we should send this
you
to
should
our
consider
board.
it.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, when we report our recommendations, our report can
Can say.
explain what kind of town we're
Right.
hoping to create,
Right.
what by means of it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's great.
Right, we can say it
Yeah.
there.
To answer the POCD question, they have a mission statement, they have a greeting letter from the planning commission chair, they have a resolution adopting the POCD and a plan summary, not necessarily a preamble. And also, I just would like the commission to consider that if that language of this preamble was included, it would almost hold the Simsbury to that preamble since the charter governs the town, and there could be a case that an individual could feel that this town is not actually doing the things mentioned in the preamble, and that could find us in a different territory. But I'm not an attorney and I don't know what law is.
I mean, like, to not discriminate, that's already governed by a ton of other laws, so we shouldn't be doing that anyway, so I don't know what it would hold us to, but I understand the point of it.
The OCD was written, what, 4 years ago?
It was actually,
It was just
We
adopted.
just redid it a couple.
We just redid it.
2017 was the last massive iteration, and they just updated it
Updated
last
it.
year.
Yeah.
In 2020.
Different time.
Cause they had public meetings and
Yeah.
everything else that they did, right? That was extensive.
Well, no, we're gonna, so the next, those were the ones that were on the agenda. I'm gonna make a motion to add something that came to us. It's in front of all of you from the town manager and various other people on regarding Parks and Rec. So I wanna make a motion to add this into public record. Do you have any discussion?
And discuss it at this meeting.
This
Yep.
evening.
So you
Do
can
I-
place the motion on the table and then we can have discussion and then have.
The motion is to add it to the agenda.
Add it to the agenda and discuss it this evening.
So I second the motion to add it to the agenda. We should have a vote on it.
Okay, do you have any,
Just a question of order, can you add a new document that wasn't part of the public?
you can amend the agenda. I asked Franklin that earlier.
Yeah, I just don't know.
Cause I didn't know, so I
Some might
asked.
say, well, no, this could be part of the
That's a
public.
good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Point of clear, and after the meeting, I would add this into the packet.
I asked the rules before I did that.
None of us.
I don't know either.
Someone snuck that in.
No, so we have a second, so we have to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, great. So we received a letter that Franklin will make part of public record from, it came from Mark Nelson, the town manager, Matt Curtis, superintendent of schools, Dave Bush, the chair of culture, parks and rec, Diana Yaisley is the select person who is the liaison to culture, parks and rec, George McGregor, who's our town planner, and Charmaine Seavey from economic development. And it is basically asking us to change the name of Culture, Parks and Rec and remove the word culture and shift that piece of it to a new commission called the Simsbury Public Arts Commission. Okay, now, I know you're all just seeing this, I saw it a couple hours ago because it was sent to me, but
I was,
my opinion, and that's only my opinion, is this is a policy that the Board of Selectmen, because it's got budgetary requirements, should be implementing and proposing to us as the Charter Revision Commission, not Culture, Parks and Rec because they don't have the ability to add money to the budget. So it should be, as I'm trying to understand the charter and the way that things work, because would be doing a new commission with a new charge, potentially with a new budget, it should be coming from the whole Board of Selectmen as a recommendation versus that commission asking us to establish yet another commission.
Well-
Am I right or wrong? Or-
I think anybody could make a proposal and there's no reason why we can't consider it, but I would wanna know a lot more about what he's proposing before I would start considering it. I know, in the budget process, the town manager has expressed the view that more support for the arts will be really important for economic development, and I'm sure he's got some ideas. So maybe we can invite these people to speak to us. But I beyond that, I don't know exactly what they're proposing and whether it would involve some kind, we don't want, in this case, we don't want an end run, as you pointed out, an end run around the Board of Selectmen that's gonna create fiscal obligations.
Right.
Isn't this, and again, I'm just reading it for the first time, so I haven't really delved into it. Isn't this kind of an issue that Diana and Stephen talked about, as they need to make the policy and then the town manager implements it? Here, the town manager is asking for a charter change. I'm just going back to a prior conversation we had.
Point of clarification, the town manager is one of the individuals.
It's coming from the liaison and not.
I get it,
Yeah.
point well taken.
But I'm just saying I'm just asking, and I'm not saying him, I'm just saying, is this one of the situations where you maybe wanna spell it out?
And my comments weren't because I'm in disagreement with what they're proposing. My comment is really, they're talking about changing the functionality of Eno. They're in this letter, adding a commission with 7 members that have budgetary, this is a big deal. And it's not for us as a charter revision commission to decide whether or not this commission should exist or not, because it's not coming from our elected officials as a mandate, right?
Well, I think it could, but we just need more input.
Yeah, more
It's
input.
not that we can't do it, it's that we need more than just a page and a half.
But I believe the previous charter recommended establishing a culture commission, and I don't know if that ever happened.
Well, it recommended, Jeff, correct me, I think it recommended moving the commission that existed into the Park and Recs.
Okay.
That's why it became the Cultural Parks and Rec.
Okay, so
There
then I
used to
would
be,
move it out.
I'm looking
They
at
wanna
here.
move it out now.
There used to be a cultural commission, which basically said the Board of Selectmen shall appoint in accordance with the provisions of section 602, a cultural commission consisting of no less than 5 members, serve 4-year terms. The Board of Selectmen shall appoint members of the commission depending upon the number. The commission shall have all the powers, duties not inconsistent with this charter that are now or may hereafter be conferred and imposed upon such commission by the applicable provisions of the general statutes, such other duties as may be prescribed by the Board of Selectmen. So it was significantly vague,
Thanks, we appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah.
To separate Culture, Parks and Rec into
It to
Cultural
move it
Commission.
into, that's why you have the Cultural Parks and Rec Commission
To move it
now.
in.
in the
Separate.
charter.
So they
Now
need
they
to
wanna
tell
separate.
us.
Move it into it.
Oh, no,
The
the
meeting.
original proposal was to separate. Based on testimony, the commission is recommending that the culture component of the Culture, Parks and Recreation Commission be recreated as a separate commission to be known as the Culture Commission. So I think that
Which
was,
it wasn't-
that was the proposed new text to add.
Yes, but
It's not
it was not included. It was not included. But I think at some point that had been in one of the prior charters. But
So the other interesting component to this is in all of these other commissions that are appointed, they're appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Okay? The proposal here is that some of these positions are appointed by the town manager. Okay, so that changes the way we've been discussing this role of chief elected officer versus town administrator. So we need a lot more information on this.
I agree.
I think we should ask Diana to come back because she knows this among the Board of Selectmen. She knows the cultural component because she's a liaison through all of these performing arts organizations.
But I'm curious as to why Wendy's signature is not on this.
And we need to find that out.
As the
Like,
first
what-
selectman.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we need,
Can we submit this letter to her and the board in general and?
she received the letter this
She
afternoon.
did, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, it would be nice to hear from them because I will tell you that the cultural diversity of Simsbury is enormous. The amount of I serve on the board of the Hartford Chorale and the Symphony, and every time we need like these esoteric type of performers, they're here. They live in this town. And so if there was a way to harness that and create the vibrancy that we need. I mean, we've got a light opera company, a symphonic chorus, sweet ad lines, bagpiping group, 6 handbell choruses.
You don't each need a commission now.
Right. But
We have
and they
13
don't
here.
and we just need so if we were to do this through the charter, it has to be done by someone who really knows how to do this. I'm just saying
So do we take this letter and ask for them to do a presentation to us on this?
Yeah, we need, I need,
yeah,
We
because
need more information.
yeah.
yeah.
Otherwise we are
I mean, I
going
hate
to
to say that
have
we need a presentation, but we need a presentation.
This is a big ask.
But what
It's
you
a big
said,
ask.
and what the point, I don't wanna lose the point you made too, is it's not just a presentation on the goals. There's a fundamental disconnect, right? I'm not sure, or at least I will struggle with having certain appointed boards and being appointed by the first selectman and now some being appointed by the town manager, that doesn't.
It changes the roles that we've been talking about.
Absolutely does.
Exactly.
It absolutely does.
So maybe first we figure out more about what it is and then we figure out the implications of it from the financial, like burdening them with budgetary considerations for adding another one, and then what you said about functionally having the town manager appointing.
because as far as a cultural organization is concerned, the boards decide what the programming is supposed to be, what goes first, what goes next, and if the person who's the executive director or the town manager in this case just does what the board of selectmen would have to, or whatever the commission has to tell them to do. So if there's and I don't think I know of any cultural organization where the board, that the ED has a say on who serves on that board. They just don't. Deliberately keep it that way.
Am I correct to say this wonderful list you put together for us about all the different commissions and boards, the ones that are appointed by the Board of Selectmen, they could be dissolved tomorrow at the Board of Selectmen, unless they're chartered, could be dissolved tomorrow if the Board of Selectmen decide to do that. And is it true that they have to be re-initiated every time there's a new Board of Selectmen? You know what I'm saying, like, I know we're talking about 4 years and staggered and all this stuff. But they all have to say, if they're not chartered, yes, I approve for the Fair Rent Commission to continue on for the next, how many years is it?
The Fair Rent Commission.
Well, I'm just picking one that's not chartered, I'm just thought,
But the Fair Rent Commission, I believe, is in the code.
okay,
So,
Okay.
but if it's not coded and if it's not chartered, you're absolutely right. The Board of Selectmen has the discretion
Like the
to abolish,
Sustainability Committee.
consolidate, or create new boards. That's actually one of the main Board of Selectmen powers.
That's our commission,
Is it one of those
right?
commissions
We're
that
done with
isn't the CGS, but it's not required, it's just they have to write a structure for it?
So for the, which one?
Like the rent commission?
Fair Rent Commission. Fair Rent Commission is actually required by statute for municipalities with more than 25,000
So we need more.
25,000 residents. Simsbury is at 24,907 or something, around there from the last census, and the planning director believes that we're past that.
well, let's just say the recycling committee, I'm just.
Absolutely, that could be abolished at the next Board of Selectmen meeting.
Because I mean, first of all, that's like, and maybe that's another recommendation, but this is a bigger than a bread box.
Yeah, so I think we put this back to the town manager,
Because they have a private endeavor.
and we need a report on this from the Board of Selectmen and those that sign this letter,
Yes. That's what we need.
because this is a big ask.
Yeah, and I want to know
So
what
we're
the genesis behind that is, like what do
Yeah.
they-
So, Madam Chair, just for my next action steps, would it be reaching out to the Board of Selectmen and the town manager to provide further clarification regarding this, or just the?
I think we need to, I personally, if they're gonna ask, this is a big ask, they should come to us in person and including the town manager and present this proposal, because it's a big ask to establish a whole new commission that has budgetary implications.
But I don't know that we need the board's input until we know more about what they're asking first, right? Then we go to-
But the ask is not the whole board, only the liaison to.
That's what I'm saying, no, he's
yeah.
asking about looping in the board of selectmen as well, but what are we looping them in on yet if we haven't gotten clarification?
Well, we could invite them to comment on
To
it.
comment on it, because
Just the
my
letter?
I don't know, my concern is that the only person on the Board of Selectmen that's on this letter is the liaison to it, and the first selectman has not signed this.
Right,
So we don't know where the rest of the Board of Selectmen stand on this ask, right?
right, so I'm saying let's find out more about the ask and then we can find out their position when we have more information.
I would ask their position first.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't, if the
I'm just not
if the
sure what we're
position of the
asking.
Board of Selectmen is, let's just say it's no,
You wanna go through the
why go through the presentation? I don't know, it's like, to me, it's like an order of operation, like, if the
Well,
Board of Selectmen aren't on board with it,
But
Well,
like if their
even
first
if
question
they're
is,
I don't know.
Even
but
if
like
they're not on board
if their
with
first
it,
question is we don't
just-
have enough information, well then.
well, that's true, I mean,
You
it's
know what I
like the
mean? If
chicken
they're
and the
saying, well,
egg.
we have some more questions, well, so do we, oh
Yeah.
wait,
But
we
there
still
are no
have to
eggs
get-
anymore, so.
Well, there are, but they're $11.99.
So, Madam Chair,
Some
since
of those findings.
since before this meeting, this letter was communicated to the first selectman, would you and the commission just like follow up with the first selectman, is this proposal, since she has it now? Do we wanna, does the commission wanna ask when the first selectman to bring it up to the Board of Selectmen, or ask just the first selectman's opinion?
Or maybe they come and hear the presentation as
We're
well.
gonna hear from them about this, whether we ask or not.
I think the Board of Selectmen should know about this letter.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm
So I think we need to ask Wendy to make sure this letter is distributed to the full
entire
board, right? Because the full board is not included on this letter. And then, but it's from the town manager, and it's not, they're not CC'd on it.
Well, why don't we do this? We tell them, you know, we'd like confirmation that the Board of Selectmen knows about this letter. And then simultaneously ask them, what is the request? Like, what exactly does this mean?
And what's the board's position?
Yeah.
Well,
But again, I'm actually less concerned about that, cause if we find, whether it's this or whatever other issue, if we find it's important, we can do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, knowing their position is important, but I don't wanna, I'm not trying to be beholden to that either.
No.
In other words, I'm with you, I'm still not sure what we're
I think we need more
doing.
information.
I need a
Yeah.
presentation or something more than this.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, but see, the thing that, I don't know, I keep going back to the thing that concerns me is this last paragraph,
On the
where
page two.
it's talking about the future best use of the historic Eno Hall and to the secure funding. Like, that is not in our purview.
No, absolutely not.
We are the
Yeah.
charter.
Yeah.
Okay,
alright, but
so,
but they're telling us what their intention is, right?
But can I-
But we
can I
don't
give
have
a
to
little
worry about
history?
that.
The Main Street Partnership has gotten $500,000 in grants for Eno Memorial Hall for renovations in the past 15 years. I've been on the board for too long. But there has been grants to restore Eno Memorial Hall. There had the golding, the
Right.
roof, there's been $500,000 in grants that are been obtained for the town without requiring a new commission. So that to need the funding for its repair and renovation, I think is a little misleading because there has been grants made out there for
Well,
that.
I
And
think
but it's been a
we should ask them.
501c3.
We're going really
Yeah.
deep into this, and again, I
Yeah.
think we're
We-
reading into what we think they might be asking, maybe he
Yeah.
misstated that and he didn't, I don't know, but I think we need more information before we completely get an opinion from the
so
board
how do we wanna
before
get
know
that
about it.
information,
I think
is
we should-
what
The
we need to give
presentation,
charge,
I think the
a presentation from them.
they can tell us why they think having a new separate board would be the best way to increase the contribution of the arts, the production of the arts to the town and to its economic development, they could do that. There's an obvious concern that if we have this separate board, it's going to involve financial commitments. And that's, I think we need to hear from the elected boards about that question before we agree to put it into the charter and saddle them with that. So I think we need to hear from both.
And what this was born from, I think you made that
Yeah.
comment too, where
Genesis.
is this coming from, like beyond what they put in the letter,
Yeah.
like what? There must be some reason functionally
Right.
more than what they put in here that has led to this proposal,
So, Madam Chair, respectfully, can I kill, as the phrase goes,
Yes.
two birds with one stone
Yeah.
by contacting the 6 individuals that are signatories, asking them for, if I'm hearing correctly, to present or explain this proposal in person? In person, and when doing this request, I can since the first selectman has the letter, do you think it's appropriate to CC the full board?
Yeah.
Or
Request that she share it with the full board. I wouldn't CC the board because then we're overstepping her. I think she needs to share it with her
I
board.
see. So can,
Just because I don't wanna step on anybody's toes.
so ask the first selectman to share it with the board of selectmen and separately ask the 6 signatories to present their proposal more
Yes.
fully to the commission in person at your next meeting? Which is the 24th, would you like to do
Well,
that?
whenever they're
Well, whenever they're ready to present.
Whenever they're ready.
Because
Our next meeting is the 18th.
It's the 18th.
Excuse me, oh, thank you, sorry about that.
Do we want a
That's the board of
representative
selectmen.
of the 6 to come?
Well, I don't want the only representative to be the town manager.
Jeff could get the, you could get Matt to
We'll
share
get
it.
Matt to do it, cause he's not busy.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Jeff, get on that, will you?
I got my own to-do list.
Alright, so that's it for discussion of chartered board and commission written comments, correct? That's what I'm seeing. Yeah.
Like, where are you saying that Wendy was CC'd on?
I asked her,
Yeah.
she
Oh,
reached
okay.
out to Franklin and Franklin sent her the letter today.
Okay, good. I was like, what am I
She wasn't
missing?
CC'd on there.
It's good for her to know.
Good.
I just need, that's background information that I knew. So this next thing is reviewing public comments. We've never reviewed written public comments in detail. We've had a lot of public comments, but we don't have them all in this packet, so I don't know if we're just reviewing Carl's or if we're going through all of them or.
From,
And I guess I have a logistical question, just because this is a lot of information and like my head's spinning a little bit sometimes, is we need to start keeping track of these conversations of things that, oh, we checked this off and we did, like, we've addressed this, so we, like, how are we gonna keep track of all these discussions so we're not revisiting the same subject over and over again? Maybe that's a rhetorical question, I don't know.
But if we got the minutes in Word, we can do a co-pilot and have it consolidated for us. It'd be easy.
say that again? Russell's a hardware store?
I know.
Yeah, it's AI.
It's AI.
Russell's
I
hardware
know,
store, I don't.
Co-pilot.
Yeah, we just do I sent you a,
Yes, yeah,
right?
it-
You do
it
a
summarizes
word cloud
everything.
and
Thank you.
co-pilot
Sorry.
and.
Hardware store.
Yeah,
Nails, screws.
No, I
like
created
how did you
a-
handle it
But
last
that's-
time?
Yeah.
At that time, didn't he have like a, kind of like a running list and they
It's sort
checked
of like a
off?
running list
Yeah,
of
like a log of kind of things,
of
right?
what they put them in
Remember
the general
correctly?
categories,
Yeah,
right? And did it that way. So, but we really didn't get to that point, from what I remember, till towards the end.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time going through doing exactly what we're doing. Before we actually started going, okay, we're gonna take a straw vote on this. Or what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? That was sort of like towards the end of the 21 meetings.
So with all the public comments that we receive in public audience and written public comments that we've received to date that are now on the website, right? How do we take all of that information under consideration? Some of it is very similar. Public audience, transparency, representation, I mean, we keep hearing the same things, right?
Yes.
And then there's specific concerns that some people have brought up with regard to a commission or two. Okay, so how did you handle that last time?
I think one of the ways to do it is to, once we've gone through this whole process, okay, let's go back to the charge from the Board of Selectmen. Okay? And, okay, here's item 1, okay? Here's item 2, here's item 3. And look at those and say, okay, where do we feel we are on this, all right? And then you start filtering in, okay, we got some public audience or comments on this, all right? We got public comments regarding the form of government. We got public comments regarding the first select person and the town manager. We got public comment regarding the Board of Finance. We got public comment regarding planning and zoning, whether we keep them separate or don't keep them separate. We got public comments regarding the Board of Education, okay? So then you start going through, okay, where are we on these things and what do we feel we need to do? That's how I think you want to do it, instead of trying to tackle every comment that you got from, the individuals. You want to respect those, and at the end of the report, I think we did this last time, we said we did get public comment regarding this.
Yes.
Okay, like we got public comment regarding a preamble. Well, we didn't want to do that, but we suggested to the boards that they do this. Or the same thing with the historical district, okay? It's in the code. Library, it's in the code, so that's where it should be addressed. We're gonna have to deal with 4-year term and staggered terms, okay? So, or did we get public comment on that? Yes, we got public comment on that.
Right.
So that's how I think should be, in my opinion, how you would approach it from a logical standpoint as you go through it and then filter in, okay, yeah, we got public comment on this, and it was pro, con, or we didn't get comment.
So do we need to go through public comment at the meetings or just keep public comment and as we go through those sections, refer back to the
I think
public
that's probably
comments?
the most efficient way of doing it.
That's the more efficient way of doing it because
Because we're gonna forget, I'm gonna forget,
Right.
if we're just going person by person, I'm not
Right.
gonna remember in
Right.
2
Yeah.
months,
Right.
oh wait, Carl said something,
Right.
I'm not gonna.
Plus there are, like you said, there is overlap, I just, I don't wanna
Yeah.
get bogged down with
Being
respect to the,
repetitive.
right, exactly, so.
Yeah, we can add a novel issue, but looking through some of
Right,
these, you.
right, yeah.
So are we all
Comments
in
on it.
agreement that that's a good way to handle the public comments instead of?
Yes.
Well, we could
Yeah,
build a list of like each commission that we talked about,
Right.
and then we can throw in public comments were on the historical one, or, so at least we know we've touched on it and there was comments related to it and we've made a decision. Even if at this point we haven't made a decision, we can kind of like start tallying them up so we know what we've discussed so far.
Ignored it.
And we got general things like just general procedures or voting, or things like the staggered elections. We put that in like separate areas of discussion.
Okay, so with regard to public comment, we have additional public comment that was received after the packet that Franklin's going to add for the next one, because we have received one from Ellen Gilbert, one from Diane Nash, that need to be entered into public record and can be included in the packet or on that tab next time, okay? Now, we also received comments from a planning commissioner member, Nicholas. Do I need to make a motion to add this for discussion or I don't?
These the other towns, some other towns.
So, I would say it made good sense for us to look at the comments we're getting from each board,
Right,
each commission, because that's part of what we asked for,
Right.
and that's part of what, I don't know that we need to have discussion of each written submission that we get. I think it will be more effective for us to spend our time
okay.
on the issues we've identified as what we wanna do. So I would move to table the discussion of
Okay.
those written comments.
the other document that was sitting in front of us was requested town planner comments. So we had requested some comments from town planners about P and Z. So this is not in public record yet, this has not been discussed, we're just receiving it tonight. So would we like to add it to our agenda for the next meeting, so we have time to digest the document?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
want to read
that's
it.
fine.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, because I
need to read
haven't, no
this.
one's read this.
Oh, I looked it up, it basically says the same thing we heard during the testimony.
It could go either way.
Pros and
They go
cons.
either way.
Yeah, so would it just kind of go with the discussion when we get to it, as
Yeah.
opposed to a separate discussion at the
When we
next
get to
meeting?
P and Z.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Will
Paul
we
suggested
remember?
that when we're getting to these topics, that this is
So
additional
are you making a
comment.
motion to include this document in our discussion under planning and zoning?
Yes, I will make a motion to
Yeah,
include
okay.
this.
I'm
Planning and zoning.
trying to be efficient here. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? No. Okay.
Now you have to remember.
Now you have to remember what you have to do. So then the next item is on the agenda is to approve the February 20th, 2025 minutes.
I move that we approve the February 20th, 2025 minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
As presented,
As
correct?
presented?
Yes.
Okay, do I have all in favor?
Aye.
All, any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, awesome. Comparable community research, there was another packet in front of you that Paul and Franklin compiled about who's got what.
Oh, it's
Oh.
in the back.
I'm sorry. So we have a third package?
This is this one.
Which page are you on?
Is this the one
Behind the
behind the
minutes.
minutes? Okay.
Madam Chair, the OLR report, I just emailed the whole
Yes.
commission, I did not print out in this packet tonight.
Right, so this is who's got what in terms of mayor, council, town manager, how they function. So that kind of goes with the report that was emailed out to us, the comparison report of who's got what boards and commissions, Board of Finance, all that kind of stuff too.
Although what Franklin included here is mostly around mayor, council,
So-
town manager,
Right.
council, representative town meeting. I'm not sure that included the first selectman or selectman form.
The mayor council could be the first selectman
Could be.
form of government. Yes, mayor is just a different term for the chief executive.
Okay, thank you.
So in previous meetings, the commission demonstrated their interest in learning more about the various forms of government and the distinction between the town manager and the town administrator. This memo encapsulates my research on those two questions and a little bit of a background, just in general for the public, to describe the differences between the legislative and the executive bodies in municipal government. And from the research I gathered, utilizing the resources that you identified as important to you, such as CROG, CCM, ICMA, the Management Association, International Management Association, and Connecticut General Statute, the General Assembly's legislative report. This is what I found, and if you wanted to discuss it here, you could. If you wanted to just peruse on your own time, that's great too. Those strengths and weaknesses that I identified is just from my research. There could of course be more, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So there's another interesting thing that I've learned is that Ridgefield, who is in our DERG from a Board of Education standpoint, and is very similar socioeconomically to Simsbury, just went through a Charter Revision Commission review. So it might be interesting to look at what they're looking at as well, because it's a similar town. Because some of these towns are either much larger or much different than us. And they just went through this last year.
I think that's a good idea.
So I was on their town website and they've got some information on there.
I'm just curious to know, how did you find Ridgefield?
Cause I like Richfield. I don't know.
Very quick on the mall, right? Bloomfield did it last year.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to, I keep going back to the DIRCs that the Board of Ed uses
What is
because
DIRC?
demographic research group.
It's kind of their comparable,
Okay.
So it's, instead of looking at just population size or counties, it's looking at socioeconomic factors as well. So when you look at the demographics of the towns that the Board of Education DIRG is, which I have a list of it, and there's like 15 towns or so that are in that, they're more similar to us in terms of structure, and
But we are exceptional.
we're exceptional, yes, and we have the lowest per pupil spending.
thank you for saying.
No, we don't.
In our DIRG,
Oh, all right.
I was at a meeting
no, I
last
know, I'm
night.
kidding.
Let her go, let her go.
So, I think it's still interesting to go back to that DIRG as well and look at that
I like that
because
idea.
they're more similar than looking at Farmington or Bloomfield, or just because the proximity is there doesn't mean that
No, they're different towns.
they're different towns.
Madam Chair, I just picked those municipalities because they have those.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the research that you did, because I think it's important to look at everything, but interestingly enough, Ridgefield just went through this and they're in our DIRG.
Let's look at it. I
So-
think it's a good idea.
So maybe
They're
instead.
not as exceptional as we are.
No,
We're exceptional.
we are very exceptional, except they have a great playhouse for theater.
I would say the comparables are great, and we wanna look at Ridgefield, let's look at Ridgefield, but I just wanna remind, we're sitting here March 5th.
Right.
We have a big job in front of us between reviewing the town manager, first selectman, the guardrails, all of that, plus the P and Z stuff, plus anything else. That calendar is gonna get short pretty quick.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure how many of these, let's look at what they did, let's look at what these guys did. That's gonna sidetrack us pretty quickly.
I mean, I think one of the biggest questions out there is this P and Z thing, because no one seems to be able to commit to this.
Well,
Well, if they can't commit to it, then I suggest we keep it the way it is. They've got to tell us, because we don't know this as well as they do. And we are never, but we are the ones who are going to be asked to vote on it. And so whichever way I vote on it, I'm going to be right and I'm going to be wrong. Right? So just keep it the way it is until somebody comes and agitates and says, this is exactly the way it needs to be. Now, I looked at the minutes from the 2016 charter, and it was very clear as to what they wanted to,
They want it separate.
They wanted it separate, they were very clear about it. And that is the most persuasive evidence I have at this point, because from the last time we met, I got nothing, and I must have we asked 16 different ways and we didn't get an
Have you read the
answer.
other town planners from other towns' comments?
yeah,
Because they're,
they say the same thing.
They say the same thing.
I thought they were more forceful on providing consumer.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, but
Well, but is that
So,
because
so
it's from a
it's-
staffing
Yeah.
perspective, from a number of hours that they're committing to these meetings, or is it from the protection of what we're trying to protect in our
from staff.
POCD? I think it's from a staffing perspective.
And personality potentially perspective too.
And efficiency of government, is kind of what I got.
Well, one of the things that, I kept getting back to, okay, who benefits? Or the developers benefit and staff benefits, okay? The developers, I'm not too worried about them. Staff, if the staff's got an issue as far as the meetings and the lengths of meetings, whatever, well, instead of meeting at 7:00 at night, have the meeting start at 5:00 at night. It's an easy fix. You don't have to have all these meetings at 7:00. Some boards meet at 5 and just do it that way. Or have them sequentially if you need to. And planning, I think a review, you mentioned something like that, a review, planning has canceled about half of their meetings. Because they didn't have anything to talk about.
There's, 10 to 12 projects come before them a year.
Yeah.
So one a month on average, but even.
They don't have to meet every other week.
So I guess, is there a need to have that whole separate commission just for that, for 10 projects?
Well, but then you get back to the POCD piece of it. How does the zoning commission do the POCD?
POCD?
Something's gonna
The
get,
plan of conservation development, I mean, something's gonna
get shortchanged.
gonna get
That would
shortchanged.
overwhelm zoning.
Yeah.
every time it comes up.
Right, and
And they were not persuasive one way or the other.
no,
Which means that then we just keep it the way it is until somebody tells us this needs to be changed.
well, and I go back, I continue to go back to like Simsbury, because we have a
That's right.
planning commission
That's
Yeah.
right.
who's
Separate.
that is separate from the needs of the developers, and we are protecting what's important to us and what we've articulated in the POCD, because we have a planning commission checking that, right?
Yeah, and the other towns don't look like us.
Yeah.
Because we're exceptional.
And they did argue we get different candidates too, the people who want to be on the.
Right, because they have different
zoning
strengths,
or
right.
technical
Okay.
interests.
So do I have the most important motion of the evening?
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Awesome.
Any discussion?
Discussion?
For over 40 years, SCM has been the voice of our town,
Bringing us together through local programming,
education, and live broadcasts.
SEM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
Ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings.
and celebrating milestones.
like our high school graduations.
But today, SEM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions. And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue.
Even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open.
Continues to educate our youth and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
For generations to come.
Visit our website
Or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media.
where your town
Your schools
And your government come together.